Greetings, good morning, and welcome to another edition of Live with Omar Moore. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. It's a great pleasure to have you aboard. It is fantastic to see you here coming in on this Sunday morning. Thank you. Hello to Donna, to Judy, to Stuart. Fat News Daily has joined us. Edelweiss Farm has joined us, and more are filing in at this moment. I do hope you're well. I do hope that things are going well for you on this Sunday. It's a pleasure to have you. I am here, of course, in San Francisco, California, where the weather is just lovely today. Absolutely lovely. Well, I hope the sun is shining in your heart wherever you may be. Hello, Judy. Good morning to you. Good morning, Omar, says Judy. Thank you, Judy. Good morning to you as well. I do hope you're well, Judy, and everybody else. I'm going to be talking about a number of things today. I'm going to try to keep this one as quickly as I can. But, every time I say that, you're here 3 hours or 4 hours later with me. And so, but thank you for being here. Fat News Daily says, Happy Sunday. Hope you're doing well. I am Fat News Daily. I hope you're doing well. Also, thank you for registering your sentiments this morning here on Live with Omar Moore. Well, there's a number of things I want to talk about. First of all, I'm sure you do know this by now. We had a very significant. And by the way, before I start with that, the person you see here on my shirt from the Global Majority, which is a black-owned business owned by Karen Hunter, who is a professor and also is somebody who does a show on Sirius XM, channel 126, The Urban View. This person that you're looking at is Ida B. Wells Barnett. Ida B. Wells Barnett was a journalist who risked her life to tell the truth. And one of the great things, she had her printing presses, by the way, I should say, burnt down twice by violent white mobs. She was a journalist who would do accounts of lynchings, would publish these accounts of lynchings, would do all these other things to really let people know what was going on in the South and elsewhere. Denise Martina, good morning, Omar and all. Denise said, and on the bottom of the shirt, is one of her most famous quotes, and I'm not going to lift my shirt to show you it, but I'm going to read it. It says, "The way to right wrongs is to turn the light of truth upon them. The way to right wrongs is to turn the light of truth upon them." That was from Ida B. Wells. You can probably see it here, actually, on the shirt. That was from Ida B. Wells Barnett. Really somebody you need to get familiar with if you have not already done so. Well, um, and I think some of the journalists out there today really need to study Ida B. Wells Barnett and look to her example and start really, doing something instead of sitting there and allowing people, and you know who they are, to completely run over them and not push back. So anyway, that's that. You also know by now that yesterday was a tremendous day in terms of voting activism across this country. The All Roads Lead to the South demonstration and rally in Montgomery, Alabama, and in more than 80 other places in this country was fashioned yesterday to great success. Places far as away as the state of Alaska. We're doing rallies on voting rights and what we need to do to fight for voting rights in this country. Roland Martin, you know him from Roland Martin Unfiltered. Please subscribe to him on YouTube, youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. He provided great coverage of this event for around 6 hours or so yesterday, and I'm going to be, I think I already have posted the link to that from yesterday. Fantastic event. The fight for voting rights is more important than ever before. And what I did like also yesterday is that you saw, in addition to black people out there, you did see some white people out there, Latinos, Asians, because this ultimately affects all of us. And people have fought for these rights for everyone, not only for themselves. So I was actually pleased to see some white people and some Latinos and some Asians in and amongst a load of these crowds yesterday. And there was a lot of organizational support. This event was only fashioned in 6 days. It was a 6-day event. It was a 6-day plan. This event, for what happened yesterday, it was planned in a very short time, literally 6 days. So, this is a tribute to Black organizing, Black leadership, and Black cohesion. And I'm so pleased and proud of what the folks who organized this accomplished. And there was a lot of support also. There were people who were in solidarity with those black groups, including Indivisible, which I was pleased about as well, because you know they our backs need to be had by all kinds of people. And I was very pleased that Indivisible and No Kings and other folks also gave their support to these rallies and things of that nature. So it's great to see you all. Jeannie has joined us. Millie has joined us. Hello to you all. And Annabelle has joined us as well. A couple other things about voting and voting rights. As you know by now, the Louisiana primaries happened. Thank you for hitting the hearts, by the way. Gosh, I forgot to say that myself. Thank you for hitting the hearts. It's really important. And thank you very much for doing that. It's greatly appreciated. And please subscribe, by the way, to this particular Substack that you're watching, my own. If you haven't already done so, please do. If you have, thank you very much for your support, your continued support. And of course, I do love paid subscribers, of course, as well. So if you can afford to become a paid subscriber, please do, because, of course, later on today, I am giving away this. So, yeah, if you have a vinyl record player and you like picture disc art, ARTE, if you like, and if you also like Michael Jackson, this album, which is actually two discs, I'm giving this away a little bit later. So it pays to become two paid subscribers to one paid subscriber. So it pays to become a paid subscriber. Hello, Millie. Hello, Denise writes. Some we need all whites. Whites, this isn't going to happen to them. But if you're not rich, they're coming for all women. I think they're coming for all women. They're coming for everybody who's not a billionaire and who is not a white male billionaire. I definitely think that white people have to step up big time. And there were some white people in the '60s who did, but there's so many more that need to step up now who aren't. And so those points are important, Denise. Thank you. Millie says hello. Jeannie says, good morning, Omar and Ida B. Thank you, Jeannie. Yes, Ida B. Just before you came in, Jeannie, I talked about Ida B. Wells Barnett on this fabulous show. And I read out a quote from her as well. So it's great to see everybody in the building. As you also know by now, there was some voting going on yesterday in Louisiana. Significant primary, by the way, very significant. And the turnout, I think, was quite robust. In some places, at least it was. And Louisiana decided to make sure that they would not be having Bill Cassidy back in the Senate in Louisiana, in case you missed that from last night. Bill Cassidy, who is a current senator of the United States, a Republican, who in 2021, February of that year, voted to convict Donald Trump in his second impeachment trial. This was the second trial when, of course, he was literally out of office already by then. February 2021, Biden was in office. But Bill Cassidy was one of seven, I believe it was either 7 or 9 Republican senators who voted to convict Donald Trump in that second impeachment trial. And so Bill Cassidy now, 5 years plus later, is now going to be serving the last few months of a Senate term. He is going to be leaving the US Senate in January. So Donald Trump, who had been backing one of his rivals, I guess gets the last laugh. But the bottom line is people show up and vote, and they decide to make that move. And so Bill Cassidy, fails to advance to the runoff. Remember, Bill Cassidy was also the one who cast his vote as a doctor and a surgeon, casting his vote for RFK Jr. as the HHS Secretary, Health and Human Services Secretary. So Bill Cassidy said he regretted that vote, or at least showed signs of regretting it. And now he certainly is now no longer going to be in the Senate as of January. So that's that. And also the Democratic primary went ahead as well. The runoff, I think, is still TBD, to be determined. And the other thing about Louisiana last night that I thought was significant was the actual 5 amendments of the Constitution to Louisiana state constitution that were put up for a vote. And I was telling, and I wasn't the only one, but I was telling black voters in particular to make sure you vote no on each of the 5 constitutional amendments. And thankfully, um, I wasn't the only one who said this, but many did. And thankfully, voters chose to listen to yours truly and many others, because the overwhelming vote was no for each and every one of these five constitutional amendments that were being put up on the ballot in the state of Louisiana. And I don't remember them all in my head at the moment. One of them was to deal with business tax exemptions. But all five of those constitutional amendments were voted down overwhelmingly. So I am thoroughly thrilled. Thank you to the voters of Louisiana for doing that yesterday as well. It's great to see you, Gloria. Thank you, KC. Hello to you, Gloria. Gloria. It's great to see you, Gloria. I hope you're well. SDR, thank you. Yes, Gloria, that's amazing, Gloria writes. It really is. We can do this, folks. And I've got a couple of other things to get to with voting, but we can do this. This is a testament to our power. We can do this. All we have to do is show up and turn out to vote. And that's where we all have a role to play, right? It's not enough for us to sit on the sidelines or even sit here on Substack, right? And comment. It's okay, those things help to a degree to spread awareness, but we actually have to do the work. We actually have to get out and vote. We have to have civic engagement. And in a podcast episode of The Politicrat, which I recorded earlier this morning, which is why I have not had very much sleep, I did a very early recording today of today's episode, which I'm going to put out a little bit later. I talk about this, how I give these solutions for civic engagement, the kinds of things we can do. We have much more power than we think, or than we're led to believe. It's so critically important for us to exercise this power that we have. This is what these Republicans are afraid of. This is what these white Republicans are petrified of. Your power. So please do not sit back and think that you don't have any. Please do not get down in despair. I know you should have your feelings. I'm a real champion of having feelings and emotions and properly articulating them and expressing them in a really humane way and not this very toxic way that we do in this country, especially men. What some women do as well, but we have to be much more emotionally alive and cognizant of our feelings, but we also have to use the negative aspects of feelings and emotions to drive us to do the positive things that we need to do. And some people do get down and do get despairing and do get hopeless. That's exactly what these Republicans and Donald Trump want. They want you to feel like that. I don't want to say you're falling into their trap, but you can have your feelings. But really, if you don't do anything to further support or propound, if you will, the things that we need to make change, whether it is participating in a voting registration drive, whether it is making phone calls on behalf of a candidate, whether it is really more importantly, even educating people you know and love who really are not sure about the voting process or don't know if they're going to vote, those things make a huge difference. And you have the power to make that difference. With a friend of yours, a family member, with a spouse who's saying, "Oh, I'm not sure, I don't know, I don't want to vote, I'm da 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 da." You have that power in your hands to make a real difference with them. So look, I just don't. I understand people have fears, and you should have fears. Fear is one of the things that keeps you alive. It's what you do with your fear ultimately that to me is the biggest key, right? Um, I don't like to use the word paralyzed. I'll use the word stuck. Sometimes we can get stuck in fear. Sometimes we can get stuck in anger. Sometimes we can get stuck in these areas and we stay there for a long time, but don't do anything. Now, that's different from if you're clinically depressed. That's a whole different story. I'm not casting any aspersions on any of that. But what I'm saying is that I don't want people who are fearing things to let that fear consume them to the point at which they just don't do anything and they stay stuck. That's not a good or healthy place to be in. Think of all the things, if you are someone who is afraid, think of all the things that make you happier, that give you joy, that make you feel more satisfied. Think of all those things in your life that you do that make you feel more nourished, activities that you might do. Just do one of those activities if you can, whether it's reading a book, whether it's watching a film, whether it is watching some comedy, whether it's creating some artwork or creating something, whether it's writing, whether it is speaking to someone on the phone, going out and meeting a friend, or going out and going to a play, or just going to a market and speaking to people. Having that connectivity is really important. Very, very important indeed. And I understand that there's fear, and I know that Denise has expressed some fears, and it's completely understandable. Um, but you know what? No matter who is bonding with whom, no matter which billionaire joins which billionaire, they only have one vote, folks. I just want to remind you, they only have one vote. They have just one vote. So you have a vote and they have a vote. And there's more of us collectively than there are of them. So use the power of your example, your engagement, contact leaders in your local communities. Make sure that you check your voter registration frequently and make sure you get other people to register to vote and talk to them about the importance of turning out to vote in every election. We can all do that where we are now. We know at least one other person on the planet, right? It's not as if we don't know anybody. So we all can do that literally today. We can literally do that. So I understand about the fears, but we just have to be able to rise above and believe in ourselves and believe that we can get this done. And really, use history as your guide. I want to remind you that times are really rough in this country, far more than they are now. And just because many of us may not have been living in those really rough times, it doesn't mean that we can't look at the history of this country and be inspired by what our ancestors did and how we prevailed and stood tall amidst all kinds of things that are far harsher and worse than what we're experiencing now. So I think social media has a lot to do with a lot of this isolation. I think technology at large, automation, AI, social media, texting all the time on a phone. I think a lot of these things have really constricted our window of engagement. And the only thing we're really engaging with is a screen rather than with each other. And so those things I think are very, very important to realize. But look, we can get this done. Louisiana was a great example of this. And we don't even have to go and look at Hungary. Everyone points to Hungary, and yes, that was a really great thing in April to see people in Hungary do what they did. Hungary is a country that's different, though. There's only 9 million people in Hungary, just 9 million people total in Hungary, and three-quarters of them were registered to vote. And we don't have that kind of number here. Three-quarters of the country is not registered to vote. If we had three-quarters of this country registered to vote, we would be flying. We'd be flying. So we have to get this turnout. So that's one thing I want to say. The other thing, finally, about voting, I want to say is this. Okay, there are a couple of things you need to be aware of over the next week or two with voting. For example, in Pennsylvania, this coming Tuesday, May the 19th, which is, by the way, Malcolm X's birthday. He will be 101 years old. He's no longer with us, but he would have his 101st birthday this coming Tuesday. May the 19th is an important day in Pennsylvania because there are primaries going on there. And it's very important that you are aware of them, especially if you are in Pennsylvania or even if you're not in Pennsylvania. Because if you know someone in Pennsylvania, or if, listen, you have a social media account or a Substack account, what you really should be doing, speaking of things you can do to educate people, is to remind Pennsylvania voters. Go on your Substack, go on your social media, remind Pennsylvania voters that May 19th literally is the primary in Pennsylvania. Very important to do this. So we can all do something, even if we're not in Pennsylvania. We can at least remind Pennsylvania voters. You can just write that post right now. Well, you can watch this too, but you can literally write that post, go on social media, reminder, Pennsylvania voters, the primary is Tuesday, May 19th. Please make sure you vote. Make sure you turn out. What is that, about a 30-second typing for 30 seconds to a minute to type that out? And send and hit send. You've just educated a lot of people. You've just reminded a lot of people about Pennsylvania. And maybe some of your followers are in Pennsylvania. Maybe some of them know someone in Pennsylvania. See, we can do these small, small things that are really huge, small things that have huge impact, huge impact. So please don't get in a place where you're stuck in fear, because I'm not saying don't have your feelings. As I said before, you should have your feelings, you should have your emotions, What I'm just saying is that there are all kinds of things that you and I can do that will empower us, and we will, by consequence, feel less afraid. So that's an example of what I wanted to say to you. And good morning, Stacy from California. Hello to you. Good morning, all, says Stacy. Susan Sampson. Hello, Susan. Yes, a primary in Pennsylvania. Indeed, there is. I see folks, right, Susan, on Spoutable. Spoutable is a great platform, people. Chris Crikey, Boozy does his great work there. Owns the platform, is terrific. Suggesting to talk to your family, friends, anyone you know who are not usually voters or who are not registered. Yeah, this is what we all need to do, Susan. Absolutely, every one of us needs to get on the platform and start to remind people and tell them to register. Do a little bit of research and remind people that there's a deadline to register. I think in Pennsylvania now that deadline's probably gone since unless they do same day voter registration in Pennsylvania, which I don't know they do yet one way or another. So I'm not going to start to talk about Pennsylvania in that way. But I will be doing education on various states throughout this year because my focus, everybody, is going to be voting. I'm going to say this, and some people may or may not like it. The Epstein files are one thing, and yes, I support survivors 110%. I've supported survivors forever, beyond Epstein and outside of Epstein, before we ever heard of Epstein. And people keep talking about Epstein, and yes, that all needs to come out. But I'm telling you, nothing is as important as voting in this country. Is nothing. You won't get to see the other Epstein files, the other 3 million, if you don't have a right to vote. You won't get to see those. And I think we really need to focus on this seriously. And I mean, focus on voting. I think that's very important. Yes, the Trump stuff is ridiculous, and yes, we need to keep our eye on it. But I'm telling you, this voting fight, each and every one of us in this chat has a role to play, including me. We all have a role to play, and we have to get busy on this. Whatever time you can spare, educating somebody, registering somebody to vote, canvassing with a group, joining an organization, donating, but not only donating, but actually getting involved too. Making postcards, writing out texts, whatever it is, please get involved in it. Justin Pearson down in Tennessee's got a campaign. Join his campaign. Get on a phone bank for him. It will make you feel good talking to people. Believe me, that deals with the fear reduction too. This makes a huge, huge difference. And we get stuck in these places and we're always focusing on one thing instead of looking at all these other things that we should also be focusing on that I think are actually more significant. And there's a number, and the bot and the troll factory comes out and says, oh, I don't want to, you get all these things. You're going to get this year of all these concerned trolls telling you, oh my gosh, the sky is falling. Let me tell you something, as tough as you think it is now, it has been rougher before. And not only that, we've made a way out of those tough times. And I want you to know that we're going to do it again. You just have to believe, you have to hope, and you have to start to work. Put it into action. It's so important. So I just wanted to say that. And Pennsylvania is very important this coming Tuesday. So please register to vote if you haven't, or I should say, please vote. If you're a Pennsylvania voter, please vote on Tuesday, May the 19th. There's some important primaries. Please get out there and vote. It's so critical. Remind people of this. If you have anybody in your family, remind them in Pennsylvania. Remind your friends in Pennsylvania. Go on your Substacks, go on your social media and tell people to vote on Tuesday. 89 million eligible voters stayed home in 2024, writes Jeannie. Find a past couch sitter and bring them to the polls. That's right, Jeannie. See, that's the language I love. See, I love when you are here in this chat and you speak that language and put it into existence, even more importantly than that. But Jeannie is on the right track. I totally agree with you. May the 19th is so important in Pennsylvania. And we all have to have this culture of voting. We need in this country to be committed to voting as a cultural event. There's lots of things that people vote for. There are people who vote for American Idol. We've got lots of Americans who have no problem, right, voting on television for an American Idol, right? That nobody has to be forced or reminded, hey, vote for American Idol. People just do that. Millions of people in this country do that without thinking. But millions of people stay on a couch when it comes to voting in a election that really affects their lives directly and affects their children's lives, affects the future generations' lives? How is that we've got to that place? Well, there's lots of answers that I'm not going to delve into now. And I told you, social media and the phones and the propaganda and the disinformation and misinformation are big reasons, and the failure of the corporate news media, which is why you need to subscribe to black-owned media, or you need to, or people here on Substack. Both, you can do both. I don't believe in or. I believe in and, both and. So black-owned media, Roland Martin Unfiltered, very important show on YouTube, youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. Roland Martin Unfiltered is Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern to 8 p.m. Eastern. Tremendous, tremendous coverage of events that you don't even know about, guests that you've never seen before, black guests, black folk on your TV or on your screen who are experts in all these areas. That you don't see these people on MSNBC or MS Now, whatever the hell it's called, MS Now or Never, or on CNN. You don't see them. You'll be lucky if you see, well, I don't even watch them anymore, but you'll be lucky if you see 10 black people in 1 week on MSNBC. I don't, but whatever, you get the idea. Leslie D, Divas, hello. Angela, hello. Paula Wiley, hello to you. We'll be a poll worker again. See, that's the thing. There you go, Susan. Susan Sampson, I'll be a poll worker again, Susan writes. I will keep supporting democracy as much as I can. Yeah, that's the thing. Susan is on the right track. This is what we need to be doing, folks. We need to get involved. We all can do something. I just want to remind you about that. We all can do something. And that's one big thing that we can do. Become a poll worker. Help people register, help people at the ballot box. I've done this before here in San Francisco as well. I was a precinct committee captain 10 years ago now. 10 years ago, when Hillary Clinton was running against Donald Trump. And yeah, it was great. It's really great. That leadership ability and then interacting with people, educating them. That's an empowering thing. That any fear that you might have, for those of you watching who are expressing these concerns and are fearful, try these very small but significant things. You will find that your fear factor will be reduced. And think about things again in your life that give you comfort, that give you safety. Right? I think that even before you get to involvement, I think that if you can platform a mechanism where you go into your mind and recall things that make you feel safe in your life, recall things that make you feel empowered in your life, recall things that give you some joy. You can think of what those are, and then think about getting involved. And you may not be able to actively, go out and do things in person with someone because maybe you have difficulty, you have ambulatory issues, you may not be able to move, you may have a disability of some kind or a challenge of some kind, a physical challenge of some kind. Think about the fact that you still can do something. You've got a phone, you've got presumably a laptop or some kind of internet or some kind of Wi-Fi. You can make a lot of difference. You really can. Or if you're a telephone person, I prefer telephone than doing all this other stuff. But you can make a real profound difference. You can make phone calls with people. So anyway, I wanted to just echo that. This is really important. Susan agrees with me. Thank you, Susan. Um, Timibetcha, hello. Tamibetcha, hello to you. Great point by SDR, 866OURVOTE.org. Yeah, election protection and lots of resources. That is a great phone number. There's a website that's actually the exact same thing as, in fact, that's the website that SDR has written about. But the phone number is also 866OURVOTE. That's also the phone number. It also happens to be the website that SDR just wrote about. And that is the election protection hotline. If you see anything that has, that is not right or that gives you kind of pause and you're kind of like, what is this? Then please make sure you do call that number or go on their website. Very important. That's a great call from you, SDR. Thank you. Hello, Brad. Hello, Robin. Um, Susan Huffland, hello to you as well. Gloria Ramirez writes, I used to listen to Roland Martin all the time. I have to get back to that. Yeah. Gloria, if you can, please do. Roland Martin is very, very important here. Very important. He gives you better coverage than anything. If you watch MSNBC or MS Now or Never or whatever it's called now, or CNN, they don't do coverage as good as he does. No, they don't. None of these places does. None of them. I used to watch the corporates. I don't watch them anymore. I really don't. Except for the California debate that was on there on CNN a week or two ago. I don't watch these corporates. Roland Martin's coverage is second to none. Second to none. You just will. People really need to look at watch him. 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. And those shows are also archived, but still, I would recommend watching them in real time if you can. But thank you, Gloria. Of course, Roland Martin used to be on CNN, and he left CNN, and things have gone upward for him. You know, everybody that leaves these networks does much better. Think about it. Joy Reid, well, she was fired. She didn't leave, right? She's doing much better. John Lemon, was essentially pushed out, fired. Um, he's doing much better. Scott MacFarlane left CBS. He's doing better. All these people, Terry Moran, fired from ABC. He's doing better. He's got more exposure now than he did when he was on ABC. So, look, the bottom line is, folks, greener pastures await us, and we have to chart our course. And as Fannie Lou Hamer once said, you can pray until you faint, but if you don't try to get up and do something, God is not going to put it in your lap. I like to remind people of this, and whether you're a person of faith or not. I'm a Christian, but I'm not a devout Christian, and I'm not a big fan at all of organized religion. But I respect people who adhere to a religion and pray to whom they pray to. I've got no um, problem or any objection to that. I'm just saying I used Fannie Lou Hamer, and you know who Fannie Lou Hamer was, as a really important reference point because people say all these things, they sloganeer. And listen, I know I've quoted some people, they sloganeer, but they don't give solutions. And one thing you'll get here is solutions, and you'll get an analysis, advocacy, and solutions on what you can do. That is one of the things that's so important here. You have to tie your audience in to some solutions and then problem solving. And then that brings out suggestions and solutions from the audience. We've already had Susan Sampson, talk about this, and other people I can remember who provided something out there. And that empowers someone else in this chat who's coming in and reading it. Oh, yeah, that's something I might be able to do myself. Hello. This is why on this Substack, you're going to get not just the analysis, right? You're going to get the solutions. And that's the critical thing. There's so many people who are searching for answers and solutions. And really, the biggest solution is us. We are the solution. We just have to figure out what we want to do. And nothing is too small. Nothing that you do to uphold voting rights, to fight for them, is too small a thing. It really isn't. If it's donating to a voters' rights organization like Black Voters Matter, you can find them on Black Voters Matter Fund, FUND.org. They're celebrating their 10th anniversary this year. Donate to them. Get involved. They register voters. They educate voters. They turn out voters. They give a mindset clinic, if you will, to voters, uplifting them, not just telling them to go out and vote, but telling them why and telling them what it means in the scheme of history, in the scheme of our future, in the scheme of all these things. And as Roland Martin said yesterday, there's no excuse that people in their late 70s and early 80s are out here marching continuously while people who are in the 18 to 40 age group are not doing anything. No, I agree with him. You know, the folks in their 80s and 70s, late 70s and they're marching for the future. What the hell are the 18 to 40s doing? See, that's one of the things Roland talked about yesterday on his All Roads Leads to the South All Roads Lead to the South broadcast, which you can find on his YouTube page as well. So, these are critical things. The youth need to be engaged. We need to listen to them, but we also need to guide them. We need to listen to them. We can't lecture them. And we have to use language that is going to really get them going positively. And we also have to find out what they care about. So if you've got a child or you've got a nephew or a niece or a step nephew or a stepson or a stepdaughter, and you're hearing, what? You're 22 and you're not voting? What? You need to, first of all, find out why. Then you need to ask them what they care about. And then you need to be able to tie what they care about to voting. And not only to voting, but tie what they care about to the people in local government who can help do something about what they care about. See, these are the little steps, and it requires a few minutes of research if you don't know, education, and presentation. And we're not all going to do it in a way that sounds professorial, but whatever you can do, it's really about the youth. So it's very, very important to do this. Gilda Johnson, I'm getting out today to hand out voting literature in Philadelphia. Well, great, Gilda. Thank you, Gilda. That's a great thing that you're doing. That's the right track. That's what you do, folks. Follow Gilda Johnson's example. That's fantastic. That's how you engage people. And Gilda's example is a really good one. And if you're physically able to get out and do that, then please do it. If you're not physically able to do what Gilda Johnson is doing, make sure that you on social media, whether it's on Substack or whether it's on some other social platform you're on, you need to remind people. You need to send links. Send out links to your followers. I don't think we do that nearly enough. And we have the power to do that. And all it requires is a simple search online that takes less than 10 seconds to search and get the results? 5 seconds. Look it up, find the link, boom. Put it in a social media message, post it. Boom, done. Done. And then your followers are now informed. And someone out there is going to have someone in Philadelphia or the Commonwealth at large, Pennsylvania at large, right? And they're going to be reminded. I intend to have guests on here over the next few months on voting. And I did interview last week here on Substack Live a local person who is running for local office here in San Francisco, Lori Brooke, who is running for District 2 supervisor. And you can watch that conversation here on my Substack Live from last week. I also had a conversation, by the way, with author Scott Kurashiga, who Scott Kurashiga wrote the book American Peril: The Violent History of Anti-Asian Racism. I already gave away a copy of that to a subscriber, paid subscriber. It is on its way. And of course, in a little bit, I'll be giving away this. Let me read some of your other comments, and then I'm going to get to one other thing about voting and then the discussion that I really want to get to here. Susan Sampson, being a poll worker, she writes, helps getting to know your community too. Yeah, this is important. Susan underlines the very important point. Community is important. Getting to know your community is very, very important. Going to town hall meetings is another way to get to know your community. I go to town hall meetings from time to time here in town. Not every single one, but many of them when I have the chance to. I go to them. Or if they're online, I make sure that I get to watch them online. There's sessions of parliament in your local city. Sessions of, say, city councils in your city, right? In your town, in your county. And they put a lot of that stuff's online. Go ahead and watch it. It's free of charge, right? Online. I mean, you're paying for the internet connection, obviously. Excuse me, the Wi-Fi. But it's there for you to use. And people don't watch C-SPAN. People just do not watch C-SPAN in this country. And if you want to know how the federal government works, C-SPAN's right there. C-SPAN, SPAN.org. They've got channels. They've got all kinds of stuff. They covered the Epstein file hearings last week that went on. They covered all these events, press conferences, The US Senate they cover, the US House they cover sometimes state government things, state legislature things, they cover things like the state of a state addresses for all these states. This is how state and federal government work. You can get an education from C-SPAN. Or if you want the really Cliff Notes version, you can get the education from Schoolhouse Rock. Remember the days of Schoolhouse Rock? I'm just a bill. On YouTube, you can go dial up that video, and it's about 5 minutes long or something. I don't remember. Teach your children, teach people that you know who don't know how government works. Most importantly, by showing them that video of Schoolhouse Rock, I'm just a bill. But local government's very important, and most people do not connect with their local government at all. If I was to sit here and ask you right now, do you know who your local elected officials are? Could you tell me who they are? Could you tell me who 5 of them are? Could you tell me who 10 of them are? I doubt that anyone in here, and I don't know you personally, right? But I doubt that anyone in this chat could tell me 10 local officials, elected officials in their city. Maybe you can. I just don't think most, put it this way, I'll just put it like this. I don't think most people could tell you that. I mean, I'm pretty conversant on the elected officials here in San Francisco. You know, the mayor, I know who that is. I've spoken to the mayor personally, right? I know who the current supervisor is for this part of San Francisco. Spoke to him recently. I know who the district attorney is, right? I know who the fire chief is. I know who the school board people are. I mean, I can tell you, I know who these folks are and their names. I'm not trying to say, well, bully for me, I'm so great. I'm just trying to say that the reason I'm saying it, I'm just trying to say that many people in this place do not know who their elected officials are. They just don't know. And we need to know these things. There's meetings and debates and things all the time. We need to know these things. And that's part of the culture of in civic engagement. We need a culture. I just said earlier, we need a culture of voting. We also need a culture of civic engagement. As I told you, I brought up the example of American Idol. You can count on at least 20 million people voting for an American Idol and doing it in 2 seconds, lickety split, and not thinking about it. And it's not just younger groups of people. There are older people who vote for this stuff. American Idol. There are people who watch programming on TV and they make that choice to do so, whether it's the housewife shows, whether it's these, Fear Factor or what is it, Naked and Afraid, and all these shows that are kind of scandalous and whatever, or Dateline. I mean, look, I'm not knocking people's viewing choices, but what I am saying is we need to have a culture where people are watching C-SPAN. We need a culture where people are watching C-SPAN. We need a culture where people are watching local government in their city in action. Every Tuesday here in San Francisco, the Board of Supervisors meets as a whole group. Do you know in your city how many city council people are in your city? I'm not trying to show off here. I'm just asking, like, do you know how many people, if whichever city you live in this country, assuming you live inside the country, do you know how many members are there on your Senate? In the state Senate? Do you know how many members are there in the state House? Do you know how many members are there in your local community government? Do you know? I mean, a lot of people don't know this. There are people who don't even know who the vice president is of this country. So I'm not trying to be rude but I'm just saying we need to really understand and know these things. These are very, very important things. And Gilda says she likes Roland Martin too. Hit those hearts. Thank you, Jeannie. Thanks for the reminder, Jeannie. And build a community. Yes. Hit those hearts and build a community. That is exactly right. And we need to hit the hearts here as well. Thank you, everybody. Roland Martin, SDR asks this question. What app for Roland Martin? Black Star Network. Type in Black Star Network. If you type in Black Star Network, you will get that information. That's the app. You will see that on Android and available on Apple as well. Black Star Network. So that is for Roland Martin's app. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You can do YouTube as well. YouTube.com/Roland S as in Sam Martin. You can do YouTube or you can do the app, Black Star Network app. And there's more than one show on Roland Martin's Black Star Network. You've got his show, Roland Martin Unfiltered. You've got shows on healthcare. Second Opinion by Dr. Ebony Hilton. That's on every once a week as well. I think it's every Monday. Roland's show is Monday through Friday. Dr. Ebony Hilton's show is one day a week. I forget whether it's Monday or Tuesday. Then you've got shows called. There's another show on living, healthy living by Roland's wife, Dr. Jackie Hood Martin. Then there's a show called The Rundown, The Breakdown, I think it's called, with Brittany Nobles. Every day at 12 o'clock Eastern, she runs down the news stories that really matter. I mean, people need to be tuning into black owned media, and Roland Martin really is it. So thank you very much, folks. Buenos dias, Omar, mi amigo. Buenos dias, Jason. Hello to you. Great to see everybody here. Good morning, Len. Nice to see you as well. Good morning, Omar. Len writes, it's really great to have all of this kind of interaction. Knowledge is power. Yes, it is. All of these things are very, very good here, folks. And look, I just think it's really important that we get engaged and get focused on the very important things that go on. Yeah, it's very sad. American Idol writes Len, and hello to you, Dr. Mary. Nice to see you here. Very disappointed how American Idol has become a religious show since Carrie Underwood is a judge. Well, yeah, and I don't even watch American Idol these days, but Len, yeah, that show is different from what I've seen on the promos. That show is different from what it was, say, 20 years ago. And it's just listen, I think a lot of TV is a brain drain to begin with. But Len, I completely hear you, and I agree. A lot of things on television now, it's just nonsense. It just, I mean, for a long time it has been. But there were shows back in the 60s and say the 1970s where you could actually learn something. But there's a lot of shows today where you're not learning anything. You're being titillated, or you're being thrown this kind of toxic culture. It's just a whole mess. I'll put it that way. Um, yeah, VP is the dude on the couch. Exactly, Gloria. Susan says, I have the privilege of being able to listen to C-SPAN while working from home. Many have no time to do that if you work several jobs to make ends meet, and that's by design. Yes, it is. Absolutely is by design, Susan. And I'm glad you do listen to C-SPAN. There's also C-SPAN radio. There's also the C-SPAN app. I think it's called C-SPAN on the go. You can download that and download it onto your phone as well. For those of you who can do that, So yeah, that is absolutely by design. Um, the thing is that with people having very little time, a decision somewhere has to be made about having someone try to engage in the political process. And I'm not saying that having no time is an excuse or is not. It's just a reality. That is just a reality, and it is by design, right? I'm also saying that if there is no awareness of what's going on, someone will wake up and go, huh? Huh? How the hell did this happen? And as James Baldwin once famously said, if you do not know what happened, what's gone on before you, you do not know what's happening around you. And so that example is key. When you're immersed in work and you're trying to put food on the table for your children, and you're so busy and you barely have time to sleep, to put your head down and sleep, let alone anything else. Yeah, there's a lot of important pieces of information that can help save your life and the life of your children and better their lives in really important, profound ways. One of those things is tuning into something locally that your local official may be talking about, that you can now lobby that person on. And people say that the Democrats must do this, the Democrats must do that. I agree they must, but we must demand from them that they do this or that. This doesn't happen by osmosis. And yeah, could the Democrats be better at certain things? Sure, some of them can be. Some of them are pretty good at some things. But they're not going to do this by themselves. You have to push them. No movement in this country was started by politicians, really. I mean, there may have been movements way back in the day, but it's the people that start these movements. And then the politicians follow at the end and say, hey, I was for this all along. Excuse me, I was for this all along. No, it's the people who do this. We're the ones who have to make the demands. As Frederick Douglass once said, the legendary abolitionist who taught himself to read and write, he was an enslaved person. And during his enslavement, he taught himself to read and write. And he became one of the greatest abolitionists this country's ever seen, if not the foremost and leading abolitionist. Made a great speech in 1854, 1856 at Rochester, New York, which I think was his birthplace, entitled, Oh, What to the American Slave is the 4th of July. That Frederick Douglass said these following words: power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will. You have to remember that, folks. You have to lobby your local politician. You have to lobby your politicians wherever they are. There's the 5 calls app, the number 5, and then the word calls, CALLS, as in Sam. That's an app you can download, and you can call local officials or federal officials, elected officials. So they need to hear from us. And this works. How many times have you heard of calling your officials and all of a sudden they do an about face on something in Congress or in local politics? It happens all the time. Do you remember this? And I'm going to get to this other thing before I end up giving away the prize here for the paid subscriber, for one lucky paid subscriber. Remember, cast your mind back roughly 15 years ago, 20 years ago, with Hank Paulson, when he was the Treasury Secretary here under George W. Bush. He had this 3-page or 1-page proposal that he wanted the House to the U.S. House to adopt. And many people were outraged at the proposal. I don't remember what the specifics of the proposal was. And people said, no, you cannot allow this. Congress, you can't pass this thing that Paulson wants you to pass. It's a ransom note to give millions and billions of dollars away to the richest people. No, 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 no. We're not giving you any more money. Congress, you can't do this. And Congress fielded millions of phone calls. Millions of phone calls. The vote was delayed. Then they eventually said no. They voted no. And then later on, about 2 or 3 weeks later, Hank Paulson tried again and he succeeded. Why did he succeed on the second try? Because people did not keep up the intensity. They just stopped lobbying the officials, didn't make as many phone calls. I don't know if you remember that. And Hank Paulson eventually got his way. But the first time around, the reason why he didn't is because you and I made phone calls. This is what we need to be doing. We need to be engaging more. So look, I understand. I know it's difficult for some, but we have to do something, folks. We really do. Thank you, Susan. I will check it out. Thank you, Omar. Yes, Len, I appreciate that. Um, this is really important. Denise Martino writes, Omar, thank you for what you were doing. Thank you, Denise. Thank you. Thank you very much. My grandson is here and I can't keep up with you and him. Are you going to be on later? Also, sorry for mistyping. Have a great day, all. Thank you, Denise. I will not be on later on. I will have the Politicrat podcast episode later on because that's already been recorded early today. And so that will be posted in a little while. But I will not be on later on today unless some really ground shaking thing happens, like an earthquake. Actually, not. I shouldn't be laughing because around here, we do get the earthquake here and there. So, Denise, thank you. Listen, I understand that Sundays are different, right? Because a lot of people spending time with their family and just having a day of rest. So thank you, Denise, for being here at all. It's really appreciated. Good morning, everyone. Writes Mary. Thank you. It's great to have everybody here. Love the T-shirt, says Mary. Thank you. Yes. And you see, Mary knows who this is. I don't have to say anything to Mary about who this is on my T-shirt. Mary, I gave some of the folks who were watching earlier at the beginning of this a little history lesson on the person on my T-shirt. and the great things she has done or did do, and the fact that her printing presses and her offices were burnt down two different occasions in service of the truth, in service of this black woman doing these really important, courageous, powerful things to make sure that we all got the story about what was going on, writing the accounts of those of people who were black people who were being terrorized and lynched in the South, in Louisiana, in numerous places. Ida B. Wells Barnett is the name of that person, and Mary knows that. Thank you, Dr. Mary. And by the way, the global majority is the place to get this. If you like this long sleeve T-shirt, and I think it's in a hoodie form and in short sleeve form, please go to the global majority, black owned company. You really do have to go if you want to support black owned businesses. Karen Hunter, I think, is the owner of the global majority. Karen Hunter, as I said earlier, is someone who is on the radio, Sirius XM, channel 126, the Urban View. That sister is 100%, man. She is just brilliant. She's on social media too. I think she's on X, though. I don't know if she's on any of these other platforms or not, but I know she's on X. Um, if you like X, and I'm not a fan of X, but hey. But the bottom line is support black-owned social media. There's Spill, there's Spoutable, there's also fan base. These are all important, folks. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The first on the face, Susan. Oh dear, I got to tell you, folks. This is really great stuff. Thank you, Frankie. Thank you. Susan writes, we also need to give Democrats the majority in order to be able to get progress. Yes, we have to. And Susan, I agree with you. We have to affirmatively push that. And we have to be savvy and I would say strategic in our voting, pragmatic. You're not going to line up with everything a Democrat or anybody says. You don't line up with everything your spouse says or your child says. So, these purity tests for politicians, for me, is for the birds, totally for the birds. Yeah, we have to get these folks in and then push them. We have to get the Democrats into the majority, but we have to push them as well. And once they do get in, we have to push them. We have to push them before, during, and after. And I just think that we've had all this celebrification of politics over many decades. You know, do you want to have a beer with your congressperson? I don't want a beer with my congressperson. I don't want a beer with my local elected official. I want them to get results. And I'm going to keep pushing them to do that. If I'm having a beer with them, then I'm not really doing what I need to do to get the rights, to get the things I need for my community and me, right? That's the way this goes, folks. Roland Martin was on live. He's interviewing a man from the NAACP, Gloria Ramirez. Yeah, if he's on live, maybe that's great. If he is, I know he definitely is replaying. If it's the All Roads to the South, All Roads Lead to the South, that might be the recording from yesterday's coverage. If Roland's wearing a mustard-colored shirt, then it's probably a replay from yesterday's event, Gloria. But if not, that's great. That's fantastic. Tanya of the 92%, hello to you. All of these people, and yes, Jason, yeah, please get to know Robert Smalls and Charlie Parkhurst. Absolutely. This is just fantastic. And Dr. Mary, I'll go back and watch live from the beginning. Don't want to miss any part of your live. It's always informative. Thank you, Dr. Mary. And please subscribe to Dr. Mary. Mary does excellent work on here. Speaking of informative, Mary Marshall is informative. So please, you don't want to miss what she does on her Substack. And please subscribe to her. She is terrific. Thank you, Mary. It's great to see you here as ever. Thank you, Len. Loves my t-shirt. Thank you, Len. The global majority. You can type it up. I forgot what the exact web address is. I will post it as well, actually. Um, this is one of the thinkers brand. There's a shirt with W.E.B. Du Bois on it that they do. They are fantastic. These folks are brilliant. There's also a company called Actively Black, activelyblack.com, which is a real fantastic black owned brand. There's so many black owned brands. There's great websites where you can find so many black-owned business products and businesses. There's also on Roland Martin's site, he also has shopblackstarnetwork.com, shopblackstarnetwork.com. That's a site that you see hundreds of black-owned businesses and black women-owned businesses, particularly as well. So that's all great. Thank you, Susan, for mentioning this. Susan writes, thanks for mentioning this, Omar. I will check out the global majority. Yeah, this is fantastic. And Susan also agrees with me on the purity test thing. Yeah, I think that it's a very naive thing that we do. Some of us on these social media platforms and elsewhere who are demanding perfection when they don't have perfection in their own lives. Please make sure that if you're going to do that to whomever this applies to, make sure you get perfection in your own life first. Make sure you demand that perfection of yourself before you start demanding it of elected officials, because nobody's perfect. And you're never going to line up all the way with an elected official. And we cannot make the perfect the enemy of the good either. I think that's a really horrible thing that some of us do. Why, oh, why? I don't know why. Why do some people, because a Democrat does one or two things, and again, moral compass is important, and your moral coda is really important. I understand that, and I agree with that. But the idea that we're going to now throw out a Democrat completely because of one or two things we don't agree with them on, that's just stupid that we do that. It's self defeating. It's not smart. It's not pragmatic. And it's not strategic. And you're living in Alice in Wonderland world. You're living in Walt Disney World. You're living in Tinseltown world. Because that's not the way the world works, folks. I would love for the world to work differently than it does, but we've got to deal with the world we have and then do things to change the world in our own small, significant way. We can all do something. And then all of a sudden, when the Republican comes up with some idea that we all have talked about forever, all of a sudden now we're praising them to the hilt and forgetting about the 99% of things that they do wrong. I see this with this Epstein file stuff, with Thomas Massey and with MTG and with Lauren Boebert and with Nancy Mace. These people are scurrilous pieces of shit. And all of a sudden, they are on board with the Epstein files, and you hear this chorus of trolls and bots and maybe some other people who are actually real human beings going, oh my God, oh, that's great, way to go. There is an ecosystem of this kind of bullshit that's pumped into us like it's something real. And I'm not saying you are not patting maybe Thomas Massey on the back for one thing, but you've got to remember Thomas Massey votes with Donald Trump 99.5% of the time. So do all the other people that I mentioned there. So why do we then try to rush to embrace the see that's the way the Overton, and I can't stand this term, but it is a real thing. The Overton window keeps shifting to fascism all the time. And our expectations get tremendously lowered. So anyway, look, I wanted to talk about that a bit. One last thing about voting. For those of you here in California, okay, this is really important, folks. Be pragmatic like black voters, folks. Susan, yep, Susan Sampson, 100%. And I'm glad, Gloria, you see through the BS of MTG. Because there are a lot of people who do see through it like you do, but there's a lot of people who don't. And you get these puff pieces from the New York Times. I'm going to talk about the New York Times in a minute. You get these puff pieces from the New York Times on MTG, trying to remake her into something that she fucking well is not, right? It's just crazy. But some people fall for that. Do not give out cookies if someone does once the right thing. Susan Sampson, 100%. And Gloria, you are right on. Um, yeah, you're absolutely right on about that, Gloria. Massey voted for the Save America Act. He sure did. So, what's more important? I mean, this is why, again, folks, I know people may not like this. Some people may not like this. But the Epstein files, as significant as that is, and all those things are, it's not the same. Again, it's not okay. Look, you may be accusing me of being hierarchical but I'm sorry. The voting rights are more important than the Epstein files are. Oh my God, they're so much more important. And we need to be using the same energy on fighting for voting rights as we are, many of us, for the Epstein files. There are survivors every day of the week They're survivors who've been living through their traumas for decades. They're survivors that we'll never know of, who've gone through hell. And we're not developing energy around that. And quite frankly, folks, because these people are rich and powerful, that's why many of us care. If these are some scumbags on the street, most people wouldn't give a shit. That's a sad truth. We are obsessed with, for lack of a better word, obsessed with rich and powerful. And it doesn't mean that because we're obsessed with them that we like them. Maybe some of us would like to be them. And there is a culture that produces that kind of envy or that kind of solicitation, right? Ooh, you can have this. And there's a great line in the first film, the first Devil Wears Prada, the first one. I'm not giving away the second one. I still haven't written up that review for you yet. In the first Devil Wears Prada, where Meryl Streep turns to Anne Hathaway and says, everyone wants to be like us. Speaking of millionaires and every Miranda Priestley, who is played by Meryl Streep, in the first Devil Wears Prada film from 20 years ago, for God's sakes, toward the end of that film, she turns to Anne Hathaway in the car and says, "You know, Andy, everybody wants to be like us." And Andy, played by Anne Hathaway, gets out the car and throws the cell phone, walks out the car, throws the cell phone into the water fountain. And so there's this seduction that goes on. You want to be, and it's like, no, some people might, but I don't want to be a billionaire. I don't want to be like one. Not every billionaire is the evil, wicked person. But there are a lot of toxic ass billionaires out here. And Jeannie writes a really great point here, right? Most people do not care about the everyday person who's been abused, who's been raped, tortured, trafficked. The average person don't care. I mean, I'm just being real with folks here, okay? Because I don't bullshit around with anybody, okay? Most people in this place do not care about the everyday person that gets trafficked. There's so many black girls and black women that get trafficked, and nobody says shit about it. Nobody. I mean, there's so many white girls and white women that get trafficked all over this world. Nobody gives two shits. Jeannie writes, and I'm going to read this from Jeannie because this is really important. Does the majority of people care that services for abused children, trafficked teens, abused adults have been drastically cut by this regime? Do people even know? Exactly. Jeannie, 100%. And a lot of people, Jeannie is 120% right. A lot of people aren't aware of this. There have been all kinds of cuts this year and last year. Do some simple searches. It's just wild. And Jeannie, 100%. Thank you for mentioning that. And Susan adds, and about what is being done to immigrants, whether they are here legally or whether they are not. Yeah. But somehow you've got this ecosystem. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have a care about the Epstein files, but there's this massive ecosystem of social media herding, and in my view, and trolling and botting, and this community of Epstein, Epstein, Epstein. I see people on these chats on the Substack, Epstein, 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 and every time I see that, and you know who some of those people are, I write vote, 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 and I also write in response to that on a chat in my unmistakable language. I also write, if you don't have voting rights, you won't see the rest of these Epstein files. We have to complete the realm here, not enter into this thing in the middle of the building. You need to enter at the ground floor. So I just want to remind people of that. I really, really do. It's amazing, Len writes, how everyone outside the US can see through Trump and the dumbness MAGA Americans are blind even when they see the truth. SMH, you listen, this is a lot, Len, about propaganda, a lot of miseducation, a lot of people being completely racist, a lot of a lack of critical thinking. There's the cult membership as well that goes into this, and it's not only a cult. People say, oh, it's a cult, cult, cult. No, it's not just a cult by itself. It's also people's racism, right? And it's also people's self-hate, and it's also people's, white people's racism or internalized racism that they may not even be aware of. And then you've got some self-hating black people who follow this asshole across a cliff and over it. And then you have some, anti-black racist Latinos who want to stick it to those black people or other people that they want to stick it to who are darker than they or darker than some of them. And this is all part of this stuff. It's just really disgusting. Vote, vote, let's Len writes. Yeah, this is all true, Annabelle. This regime is anti-human. It's anti-black, it's anti-female, it's anti a lot of other things. And it's anti-human. And people have to really understand that. And Project 2025 was a white nationalist manifesto for white dominance. That's what it was. But no one, hardly anybody hardly anybody read Project 2025. So here we are. Now, let me just tell you something, folks. One more thing on voting. Here in California, I want you to say that, be reminded, because I was saying this earlier, but I didn't get to it. California voters, anybody in here who is from California, who is registered to vote here, I want to remind you, if you know someone in California who votes but is not registered to vote, please remind them that tomorrow, Monday, May the 18th, is the last day that you can register to vote in the June 2nd primary. I'll repeat that one more time. For people here in California, Monday, May the 18th is the last day that you can register to vote in the June 2nd, 2026 primary here in California. Just keep that in mind. Very important. By the way, last week, the governor, Gavin Newsom, put out a revised budget. Okay? This budget is now $349 billion. It was roughly $348 billion when it was proposed back in in January of this year. And here was the total, the January proposal, if you can see it there. I'm going to try to bring that as close to the camera as possible. $348 billion. Now in May, because it was last week, 349 billion, if you can see that. So that's the new number, that number right there. And it's a small change. It's probably a 0.14% change, 0.14%. Now, what happens with the budget here, folks, is that as it does in a lot of states, the budget gets proposed usually in January, here in California, certainly. Then in May, it gets revised. So there's a slight uptick in the revision to the budget, okay? Governor brings that out as he did last week, May the 14th. That was just a few days ago. And then what happens is in June and during the course of this month and into June, there are budget negotiations, right? And the governor's office and the state legislature do their negotiating. And the bottom line is that sometime in June or July will be a vote on whatever the budget is negotiated to be. And there'll be a vote in the legislature for what the final California budget will be. So this here is really important, folks. If you're in California, I want you to understand how state government works with these budget proposals and budget revisions. There's a budget proposal for the state in January. And then in May, usually there's this revision that you see in my hand that I just showed you, right? And then in June, negotiations and a vote. So, these things are so, so important. And the legislature is going to vote on this in June at some point. So there we go with that. Very, very important. Okay, we had the final California debate, governor's debate here in the state. That was last week. Right now, it's looking like you're going to see two people, right? You're going to see either two Democrats or one Democrat and one Republican. I think that you'll end up having one Republican, maybe Steve Hilton, and then you'll have one Democrat. I predicted it would be two Democrats. I predicted it would be Becerra and Steyer. But what I think is probably going to happen is you're going to see probably Becerra and Hilton, probably. But do not leave out Tom Steyer. He's still a very formidable candidate. Full disclosure, I am voting for him. I gave lots of reasons why. I ran down his record, good, bad, and ugly. I made it very, very clear. I made it very, very succinct. I gave a lot of reasons. I talked about all these other candidates as well. I talked about Javier Becerra. Becerra, I think, is a good candidate. Yes, like everybody, there are things about him, like everyone in this race, including Steyer, that I'm not a fan of. But the bottom line is that he still makes a good candidate. I don't think you can go that wrong with him. The only thing that separates him from me, from Tom Steyer, is that Tom Steyer believes in abolishing ICE. Tom Steyer believes in single-payer healthcare. Tom Steyer believes in a billionaire tax. Tom Steyer believes in a windfall tax against oil companies. Javier Becerra does not. Javier Becerra does not believe in a windfall tax against oil companies. He takes money from Chevron. That's openly admitted. That's very clear. He also does not want to abolish ICE, and he does not. He's been wobbling around healthcare, and he's wobbling around things like single payer. And single payer is not the same thing necessarily as Medi-Cal or Medicaid. And Becerra's been very up and down on the environment. Tom Steyer, well, he's not up and down on it, but he's not been very forthcoming on a lot of that. And I think Tom Steyer on the environment is excellent. SDR, thank you. Tom Steyer is a conservationist. He's had decades of that history. And so my whole thing is that Tom Steyer, I think, is very, very, very important. His listen again. There's things about Tom Steyer that I have objected to, but the point is that I think that it's very important to look at people like Steyer and Becerra. Steyer comes from outside of politics. Yes, he's a billionaire. Do I really want to see a billionaire run in California? Not really. Do I want to see another white male billionaire have a shot at something? Not really. However, there are things that Tom Steyer has talked about, and he has a long track record on outside of politics that I actually find to be really important, and I do think are very key. He does not have the political experience Javier Becerra does. That's very, very true about Becerra. He has 35 years of experience in California politics. He was the Attorney General of this state. That's a statewide office, right? So that's important. He does have a level of gravitas, and I certainly noticed that for the first time in the debate this past Thursday that ran here statewide. It was the first time in all these debates, and that was the last debate that we're going to have before the June 2nd primary. Um, I have to tell you that I think Javier Becerra was terrific in that debate. The last one that we had, Steyer was pretty good as well, at second place in that for me. But I think a lot of voters probably are going to probably end up going for Steyer out. For Becerra out here. I'm going to vote for Steyer for the reasons I've talked about. But again, there are some things that the Becerra people are going to decide on. I think people with this are going to decide on rather on the style and presence rather than the issues. And I think they should be looking at the issues more. But I think the reality is that people do not look at issues as often or as closely as they should. Obviously, lots of us do look at issues, but there are voters in states across the country who look at presentation and style and experience. Okay, he has experience. Okay, I may not like this, and this about Javier Becerra, but he has experience. That is the mindset of of a lot of California voters at the minute. He looks like a steady pair of hands. That's what you got from Becerra on Thursday last week. is that he has a steady pair of hands. And I've said he's a good candidate. I just don't like his positions on some things. But I said that it's probably going to be between Becerra and Steyer. And if you look at these states, these ads in this state, those anti Steyer and anti Becerra ads are flying around. And I'm so thankful that Gloria wrote this, what I'm about to read out to you, because I forgot to mention this. So thank you, Gloria, for reading my mind and reminding me. Gloria Ramirez, who is here in California, writes, PG&E is sponsoring Becerra's ads. PG&E is horrible for the environment. Thank you. Thank you, Gloria. That's 100% right. In fact, I had taken a screenshot of a video from television on a pro Becerra ad. Literally, and I was meaning to post it yesterday, but I forgot to because I really wanted to focus people who come to my Substack on my timeline. I wanted to focus them on All Roads Lead to the South and the nationwide rally for voting rights. And there's going to be more of these events with Roads Lead to the South. And I forgot afterwards to post this PG&E screenshot, this screenshot where you see PG&E's name in all of the people who fund the pro Becerra ads and the anti-Steyer ads, because PG&E fund anti-Steyer ads and they show up in pro Becerra ads. Follow the money, people. Gloria knows. PG&E is abysmal for the environment. Absolutely. PG&E sucks. Gavin Newsom, the present governor of the state, he let PG&E run amok. He did. PG&E is a piece of garbage. Whether it's Diablo Canyon, whether it's the San Rafael, excuse me, the San, oh crikey, which city was it? Oh my God, I just drawn a blank. San Mateo. San Mateo disaster with the fires, people got killed. Oh yeah. Annabelle, 100% true. Annabelle writes, is it true they caused the fires? Oh yeah. PG&E is horrible. They are one of the worst things about California is Pacific Gas and Electric. It truly is. And Jason writes, they are so effed up. Yeah, yeah, they are. PG&E is a disaster. San Bruno, thank you. Crikey, I think San Bruno is in San Mateo County. San Bruno, that's right. San Bruno, that was so horrible. That happened back in 2010. And people got killed in the fire. It was just awful. And Gavin Newsom let those motherfuckers run amok. Let them run amok. And Gavin Newsom doesn't believe in a billionaire tax. PG&E are fun. Listen, for those of you who are in California who are still not clear whether to vote for Becerra or Steyer, look at the money. PG&E, as Gloria said earlier, funds pro-Becerra ads and also funds anti-Steyer ads. Don't get caught up in, oh, Steyer's a billionaire. Now, some people are going to do that. If you think that every billionaire on earth is evil, then go with God. Go ahead and vote for someone else. But I'm sorry, every billionaire on the planet is not an evil person. Like, come on, folks. I'm not defending billionaires either. I'm just simply saying to you that Tom Steyer specifically, yes, he did a horrible thing in the past. Have you ever done a horrible thing in your life? I'm not saying, and I know we're not all running for California governor. I know that. But if you've never done something that's been bad in your life, then you haven't lived. And you also haven't learned from your bad thing that you've done. Tom Steyer, at least, one of the other reasons I'm voting for him is he shows that he can have change in himself as a person. I actually think that is a really healthy quality to have. If you want to get into leadership in politics or in governance, you might want to actually show that you are capable of changing. Because, hey, when you have your team around you and they advise you to do this, that, or the other, you as a person might be really well equipped and best advised to show a sense of change. Jeannie writes, I'm not telling my bads. Oh, Jeannie, you know I want to know now. You know I want to know, Jeannie. Thank you, Jeannie. Oh, come on. We all have bads, folks. Come on now. Anybody that says that they've not had a done something bad in their life or done something that's really kind of been, pretty nasty or whatever, you just haven't lived. You're literally not a human being. There's a movie called The Drama that's been out for about a month or so, a month and a half now, with Zendaya and Robert Pattinson. It's not a great film, but it's a film where there's a moment in there where they're talking, "Oh, tell us what was the worst thing you've done in your life," right? And so they all do it, and then the movie moves from there. I'm not going to give anything away for those of you who might want to watch it when it comes out on demand. I think it's already on demand. But the film is, and I wrote a review of it here on Substack a few weeks ago, and it's a film that I think is okay. It's not great, but Gloria writes, "I'm far from perfect." Yeah, I'm with you, Gloria. None of us is perfect. None of us is close to perfect. We don't want perfect. We want to be human. We want to learn. We want to evolve. We want to grow. Perfection for me implies that a person is the finished article. I don't care how old or young you are. You're not a finished article. You're not. We will all pass away from here, from this earth, not being the finished or perfect article. We just won't be. And Susan writes, nobody needs to be perfect. I agree, Susan Sampson. Nobody needs to be perfect. Perfect is a fiction. Perfect is a fiction. Perfect says that you don't have to grow anymore. You don't have to learn anything because you're perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. There is no such thing as perfect. There really isn't. So, look, the bottom line, folks, is that's another thing that's really important, right? So, Becerra takes money from Chevron. He is supported by PG&E. He does not support single payer. That's not explicit from him. He does not want to abolish ICE. He also does not support the billionaires tax. None of those candidates does. Katie Porter doesn't support the billionaires tax either. I mean, again, as I said before on here, she says, "Oh, I don't take corporate donations," but you also don't support a billionaires tax. So it is tantamount to really taking some kind of thing from a corporate entity because you don't want to tax them. And your defense is, well, I don't want to tax billionaires with this billionaire tax because there are other ways to tax billionaires. What about this way? Every way to tax. I mean, this is kind of like the perfect seeking the enemy of the good. I mean, if you claim you don't take corporate donations and you don't like this tax on billionaires, then really you kind of are taking. And you know what? Why? Listen. Why can't we just have several different ways to tax billionaires? Why do we have to say, oh, this one's not good? I just think that's really strange, folks. Yes, Annabelle, right. Sounds like Katie and others should have dropped out by now. I think they should have, but they're not going to. Katie's on the stage. Antonio Villaraigosa, Katie Porter is on the stage. Antonio Villaraigosa is on the stage. And I think Villaraigosa is good, but I'm sorry. And I'm not a big fan of polls. I don't like polls because the only polls that count are the ones that we vote in at the ballot box. But my whole thing is that I think he should drop out. I think Katie Porter should drop out. I think Matt Mahan, the tech bro, the tech bro of San Jose, the mayor of San Jose. He's the tech bro. He's the guy that gets millions of dollars from Palantir. He gets donations from Palantir. He gets donations from Peter Thiel. That's Matt Mahan, the tech bro, who claims he's this Democrat and he's a San Jose mayor and all this regulation isn't great. This guy Matt Mahan, that's right, and Gloria spells out his last name in the chat. Matt Mahan is just really disgusting. This guy is a shadow Republican, and he always talks about deregulating. Oh, we shouldn't have all these regulations. We shouldn't have. And this guy's the Democrat in the room. So okay, Matt, how are we going to deal with a X amount of billion-dollar budget shortfall? We have a projection. We had a January projection in California of an eighteen billion dollar budget shortfall. Shortfall. How do we deal with that, Matt Mahan? If you're not going to deal with regulation, if you're not going to deal with taxes, if you're not going to regulate and you're not going to tax, how are you going to do this? What do people think the billionaire tax is about here in California? It raises $100 billion of revenue to pump more into education, to pump more into healthcare. And you can actually lower the budget because when people have better healthcare assistance and outcomes, it affects the economy, folks. You need healthy workers in an economy, right? You need healthy workers. And so the economy is powered by workers who are healthy people. And if people are sick, like we saw 6 years ago during Planet COVID, I'm now calling it that. I don't know why I just said that, but I just did. Okay. Planet COVID, that affects your economy, which is why this billionaire tax is actually needed out here. And by the way, Katie Porter and Javier Becerra and the rest of you who do not support that billionaire tax, except for Tom Steyer, who does support it. By the way, this is a one-time only tax. So Katie Porter's saying, oh, there's other ways to tax billionaires. I'm sure there's a billion ways to tax billionaires. But oh my gosh, Katie Porter and everyone else except for Steyer, this is a one-time only tax of 5% of the 255 billionaires in this state's income. It's a one-time only tax. And yeah, there's movement to tax the wealthy in New York, Annabelle. Yes. I don't know if it's actually started yet. I'm not aware. I need to do the research, but I do know that those conversations were going on. And the housing tax is something that's been floated. The governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, talked about this. She had a budget situation. She had some discussions with the state assembly leader, Carl Hasty, or Carl Hasty. I forget how you pronounce his last name. Gloria writes, I got post COVID asthma. I'm so sorry, Gloria. And to anyone else in the room, I know Jason's talked about some of the health challenges and really difficult things that Jason's had to go through. My heart goes out to you. It's got to be extremely difficult. I am not in your shoes. I really do say to you, stay as strong as you can. I know that's a kind of trite thing for me to say, but I really do want you to keep fighting. And I am so sorry. Um, so thank you for talking about these things, and it's worth noting them because they are very important. Um, Len writes, I can't imagine why Gavin Newsom or Katie Porter don't support it. That's very hypocritical of them. They preach about saving money and about how MAGA takes money from us. Yeah, Len, it's very hypocritical. Gavin Newsom, look, he is genuflected to the powerful. He doesn't mind PG&E getting away with murder, and he's railing against a billionaire tax. And this guy's running for president because we all know he's going to run. So yeah, there's that. I don't know what else to say, Len. I just think that this is pretty crazy stuff. And so Tom Steyer is the only one of these top seven candidates who believes in the billionaire tax. And I know the criticism of him is, oh, well, how are you going to get this implemented? What do you mean, how are you going to get it implemented? If the voters vote for it, that's how that's going to get done. That's how that's going to get done, folks. Anyway, it's just crazy. But the bottom line is no problem with the spelling, Len. That's fine. I listen. I can discern what you're saying. Every consonant and vowel is not going to have to be in the right place for me to understand. Sometimes when people type things out, because the comments came from maybe earlier and I didn't read them out earlier, I have to sometimes ask people, can you please kind of reference what you're talking about? But no, it's not a problem, um, Len, at all. Couple other things before I get to giving away these prizes. What we're seeing now in this country with these legislatures in the South and everywhere else. Yeah, and Len, you're right. I hope New York will set an example for everyone else. Zoran Mamdani apparently did apply the billionaire tax. Thank you for that because I wasn't 100% sure if it had actually been applied yet. So thank you, Len, for that information. I should go and look it up myself as well. But thank you very much, Len, for that. I really do appreciate it. Yeah, Zoran Mamdani is sticking to a lot of the things that he campaigned on, and good for him. And the rich people of New York aren't leaving; they're not running away. This is all nonsense. Who would run away from New York City with the billionaires that are there, and with the media capital of the world, the economic capital of the world, Wall Street? Who would run away from? from New York. It's all this fear mongering that never happened. The rich in New York are spending more money there than ever before under this mayor. So it's just nonsense. They're buying up more property, buying up more everything. Under this, under Joe Biden in 4 years, the billionaire state in this country got $1.5 trillion richer. True story. Seattle Times, go look that up. Seattle Times, go and look up the Seattle Times from, I think, what year? Maybe 2021 or 22. I forget what year it was. Just type in $1.5 trillion richer billionaires, and you should get that story. Under Joe Biden, who did have regulations in place, who did have billionaires pay more. So the billionaire class is not starving for anything. Okay. So yeah, Zoran Mamdani balanced his budget. Yeah, Gloria, thank you. That's very true. Now, look, this power grabbing, this stuff that you're seeing in Tennessee, in Virginia, in South Carolina, in Missouri, in all these places, all of these things are not just a grab of power by Republicans. It's a white power grab. They see this coming, right? They see this coming. America's changing colors. And note the date of that Time magazine. It's more than 36 years ago. This is what these white racists are responding to. In 2045, the United States of America will have a majority brown and black population. And so, roughly 20 years from now, this country will not be a majority white populated country. Now, I have another copy of this somewhere, but this copy is someone else's from some other place. I got this off of eBay, but I have the other original. This is a really important uh, magazine article, and I'm telling you, this has been something that's being worked on for years. Exactly, Susan. Project 2025, as I said before, is a white nationalist, white dominant manifesto. It's a white nationalist manifesto for white dominance. And so the white men who are in power in the Republican Party who are doing this are doing it because they know that they're not going to be dominant in 2045. And so they want to at least have an apartheid system where they in the minority have all this power. That's what this is all about. And I'm telling you, folks, this is what they're responding to. That's why they're getting rid of all of these black elected officials. Jim Clyburn, they want to get him out in South Carolina. They've already gotten rid of Cleo Field's seat, essentially in Louisiana. That's going to be gone. The seats in Texas, those are going to be gone. Remember that from last year with the Texas Republicans and with all that stuff. By the way, the Texas court, federal court said that the Democrats being punished for being away from the Texas state legislature was wrong and invalidated all of that and said that they should not be fined or punished for any of that. That's one thing you need to know. But all of these seats, Texas, Missouri, South Carolina, Louisiana, Virginia, those are all the attacks of that on black elected officials. This is naked, raw, naked, stealing black voting power and black political power and representation. That's what this is. This is absolutely Jim Crow continued. This is absolutely everything about stealing power from the people who are going to be in the majority, along with brown people. Some brown people's seats have been taken as well, but mostly black folks' seats stolen from them in Mississippi, all these places thanks to the Supreme Court and all of these Republican legislatures. And there is fight back, Len writes. Yes, people are fighting back, but I am laying out the genesis of where all this is coming from. All this white fear, White dominance, wanting to stay dominant. I don't call it supremacy because there's nothing supreme about them. Applies, supreme implies brilliance, like the film, right? Marty Supreme, the movie, right? Supreme, that word supreme implies brilliance. There's nothing brilliant about these people, and there's nothing brilliant about what they're doing. They are criminals. I call it dominance because that's really what it is. It's about preserving white dominance and white power. That's what it is. And we need to frame it that way. It's not white supremacy. I know lots of people say white supremacy. It's really white dominance, white control, white power. There's nothing supreme about what these people are doing. Again, supreme implies or connotes brilliance or greatness. And these folk ain't great. I don't care what that four initial acronym is, right? There's nothing great about these people. In fact, as you've seen, they are wholly deficient in running anything. Just go look at Pete Hegseth. Go look at all these people. There's nothing supreme about them. Okay? Nothing. And I agree with you, Annabelle. They imagine their supremacy, but yet there's nothing supreme about these folks at all. At all. And yet we, not you necessarily, but we as a people adopt that same language. And it's like, no, there's nothing supreme about these folks. Brittany writes, Omar, sorry I've missed your lives lately. I appreciate you. Thank you, Brittany. I appreciate you also. Thank you for being here. Please become a paid subscriber, folks, if you can. If not, please become a free subscriber. Please spread the word about this Substack. Um, but this is really key, right? This is one. Number two, great article in today's New York Times. For those of you who don't like the New York Times, well, look, like everything else, not perfect, right? This article in the Sunday New York Times is a really good one. My Family's American Secret, written by a former New York Times writer, Susan Salny, Saulny. And why is that an important story? Let me tell you why, folks. And I do hope you can see me, and I do hope that you are able to hear me. This story by Susan Salny, who used to write for the New York Times for about 13 or 14 years, this story is about someone who is black, who is passing for white, who happened to be a member of Susan Salny's family. Susan Salny is a black woman. I did not know this, right? I thought she was white. But you go look her up, you see her picture, she's a black woman. And so she writes in today's New York Times about passing and people in her family passing. And also, let me just tell you this, also, the way that the white members of her family treated the black members. And this goes on for 2 or 3 pages. I don't know if you can even see this. It goes into, she writes in detail about all of this. It's just remarkable. It's a great story. And here too, this is the other page of it, right? All these birth records, all this stuff. This is incredible stuff. And there's more. And I know that people have reached out around this, and I will get in touch with the relevant parties around this issue that I'm talking about. And there's more, right? There's more here. Right? There's more. I mean, this is like a 5-page article in the New York freaking Times, folks. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. There's more. Look at this. Look at that. Huge article. This is a big ass article. 5 pages in the New York Times today. And it's a big story on the front cover. I mean, that takes up what is that? 4 column inches, 4 columns worth across the above the fold. That's from today's New York Times, Vicky. Absolutely. This is an incredible story. And this whole thing, she writes this, and it is today's New York Times, Sunday, May the 17th, 2026, as you can see there. This is an incredible, and so she writes in detail. A black woman, Susan Salny, who wrote with the New York Times, was there for 14 years. And yes, absolutely, Vicky, it's online. And thank you, Vicky. It's nice to see you as well. Thank you. You're welcome, Vicky. Susan Sowney writes this comprehensive story, and I'm not sure if it's part of a book she's doing or just but it doesn't really matter. She puts this story out here. It's incredible, and all the things that this white family, the part of this white family who that she's a part of, or the lineage of, and this black man passing for white, and when they found out who he was, how they treated him, how they treated, it was just horrible how these white folk totally just absolute. It was she writes through all of this stuff. It's remarkable. I listen. For those of you who don't get the New York Times, certainly if you're a paid subscriber, I'm going to be putting something together and including the story and gifting the article to you as a paid subscriber. Um, because I'm telling you, you need to read this thing. And it's a story that's replicated all over the country and beyond, right? Passing. And there's a film called Passing that was on, I think, Netflix several years ago, starring Tessa Thompson. And I'm forgetting the name of the other actor who was in there as well. It was directed by Rebecca Hall, a white woman from England, I think, or maybe she's from here. Rebecca Hall, right? And and Vicky can gift the article too. Okay, Vicky, that's great as well. Thank you. Um, but I'm telling you, folks, um, that movie Passing was quite good as well from a few years ago. It's a good movie, but this story that Susan Sowney, a black woman who has been writing for many years, wrote. She was a New York Times writer for 13 to 14 years, from 2000 through 2013, which is actually 14 years, right? Um, uh, this article is really, really, it's really good, and it replicates a lot of what a lot of people have gone through in this country, and it's tremendous. It's a really important article, and I'll be also talking more about this at another time. And I know people have talked about this, and I wanted to definitely connect with them as well. I just haven't had the time to, and I will get to that. But this article, I wanted to really point out to you. Fantastic story. This is quite a story. My family's American secret. And I just showed you all the pages. It's like 5 pages of this thing. It's just incredible. It's really incredible. So, and I love reading papers. I mean, I obviously I look at these things online. I actually subscribe to the New York Times online as well. Um, but there's some really good stuff in the New York Times a lot. All these people, the New York Times, I'm going to get rid of it because of one thing. Okay, yeah, there's things about the New York Times I don't like, but the New York Times is still a good newspaper. It's not the worst newspaper out here. You know what a terrible newspaper is? The San Francisco Chronicle. That's a terrible newspaper. They did a great story recently on Eric Swalwell and all that horrible stuff from him, allegedly, right? But that's the only great story I've read in the Chronicle in years. This newspaper, its standards are not the same as they used to be in many areas. But one thing that they've never failed to do is write bloody good stories like this one. This story you need to read. And Vicky is like me. Vicky just wrote, I love reading the holding the real paper. I love it too, Vicky. I love it. There's no substitute for this, holding it in your hand, smelling it. Like you can smell that kind of printing. You know what that is, Vicky. I'm sure you all do. Right? That ability to do that, if you have your olfactory senses. There's nothing like this. Nothing like a story like this in a paper on a Sunday morning. You're sitting there talking to your spouse or your significant other or your kids, and you've got the paper in your hand and you're reading it, and you're sitting around a table talking about a story. I mean, this story is tremendous. And all these people who say, "Oh, the Times," I'm just gonna. There's this culture that just dismisses everything. We cannot be this disposable culture that we continue to be. We've got to stop that. We've got to stop being so disposable of everything. We have a very disposable, very extremely judgmental attitude on a lot of things. Listen. I've fallen prey to this. Yeah, I've been very judgmental about some things, but I think as a culture overall, we are just very dismissive and very judgmental, extremely so. And we need to have a bit more nuanced thinking and critical thinking. And stories like this one, this is This is a blockbuster, folks. If you think that Finding Your Roots is a good show, Finding Your Roots, of course, is on PBS with Henry Louis Gates. You need to read that article. What do you mean when you write, Vicky writes, the New York Times and the Jews is not so great? Please expand on that, Vicky. I think I know what you're talking about, but I want you to explain it because I'm not sure what you mean. Brittany agrees. I cannot read a tablet or a screen or a phone. I agree. I don't like to do that. I really don't. I like to try to stay reduce as much as possible, that kind of thing. Hello, tired of BS. Nice to see you. Papers and old books smell good. Yes, they do, Annabelle. Oh, this is fantastic. Yes, I miss my morning newspaper. Vicky writes, I miss the physical paper. Connie Moody writes, hello, Connie. Nice to see you. It's so interesting. The morning paper. Prince did a great song called The Morning Papers back in probably in 1998 or maybe 2000, whenever it was. Maybe 19 in the 1990s. Maybe 1993 or 94. I don't remember when it was. On one of his albums, The Morning Papers. Great tune. I love that tune. I miss Prince. I miss my morning newspaper. Well, I have my morning newspaper here, but I do miss Prince. I miss a load of people. Connie misses the physical newspaper. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Connie. Absolutely. To reaffirm what you said. Absolutely. Annabelle, thank you for your comments. Let's see, read through here. Omar, Vicky writes, it is the younger folks we need to bring in. Um, I love finding your roots, writes Vicky. The younger folks we do need to bring in. We need to do a better job of that. I agree, Vicky, and thank you for writing that you love Finding Your Roots. It's a fascinating show. We look to the lineage, the things that tie us together, folks. And this country and the white folk who power this country, who are the powerful people in this country. They don't power the country. They are powerful. They, whether it's Republicans or whomever, usually it's Republicans. They don't want you to know all of this thing. They don't want you to know about all this history. They don't want you to know about stories like this written by Susan Sarley. They don't want to know about maybe your personal story. They don't want to teach that in schools in many places across this country. And it's not just the South. As Malcolm X once said, stop talking about the South. If you're south of the Canadian border, you're South. And I think that we need to stop acting as if the South is a separate country from the rest of us. Yes, there was the Confederacy, and the Confederacy is still here as far as I'm concerned, but it's still the same country. And as long as we're living in the same country, we have a duty to fight for voting rights and not just point at a few states and say, oh, well, they're fighting, but we're not. I mean, we all have to fight. I'm not saying that people aren't doing that in this chat. I'm just saying that we need to be full on participants and not spectators, as I said earlier. Good morning, Omar and all. Terry Ann, good morning. Oh, it's great to have you aboard, Terry Ann. Thank you for being here. Thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate you, Terry Ann, for joining us. And Susan Sampson. Yes, Prince. Oh my gosh, Susan. I'm going to do a Prince giveaway, by the way. I know I'm doing the Michael Jackson giveaway in a few minutes, but oh my goodness, Susan, if you're a Prince fan and you have a vinyl, and you have a vinyl collection or a vinyl record player, you want to be here. You want to be a pay. Well, only to paid subscribers though, because if you're not a paid subscriber, I'm. Not, I'm. This is only all these things. These gifts I give away are for paid subscribers. But if you are a Prince fan, Susan Sampson, and you would be interested in possibly winning a Prince album, I'm going to give away a Prince vinyl record in the next, maybe next week or the week after, before Memorial Day, whenever that is. Before then, if you're interested, you can become a paid subscriber here, or of course you can just go out and buy the Prince record or stream it or whatever. But I'm giving away for paid subscribers next week. Anyway, before Memorial Day, I'm giving away a vinyl. I haven't mentioned which one it's going to be, but a vinyl album from Prince. It might be Purple Rain. I'm trying to think of which one. It's going to be one of the. It's either I will tell you in due course for paid subscribers. So if you're a Prince fan in the next week or so, and you're a paid subscriber and you have a vinyl player, you will want to tune in either next week or the week after, certainly before Memorial Day. I miss a lot of people too, writes Vicky. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Vicky, we cannot forget those who've come before us. And people in our lives who make a difference, people in our lives who really taught us the way, people who we were impacted by, people we loved, people we had relationships with, may have been married to, people that we've had deep connection with, and they're not here. And it just kind of keeps us alive and alert to the fact that, we are moving up the chain, right, in terms of life. And so we need to have that historical perspective, as Vicky points out. And Vicky, thank you very much. And Vicky lives in North Carolina now. Thank you, Vicky. Um, it's we need to connect and we need to understand. Vicky grew up in D.C. and Maryland. Racists are everywhere. That's the point. Exactly, Susan Sampson. They're everywhere. Enslavement wasn't just in the South either. You had enslavement in New York City. You had enslavement in Boston, Massachusetts. You had enslavement all over the country. All the way that we're taught about enslavement of black people as if it's only in one place. Enslavement anywhere is horrible. I'm not. It is reprehensible, obviously. I'm simply saying that the enslavement happened all over the place. Harvard had enslavement on its campuses. One of my giveaways in the future is going to be of a book called Ebony and Ivy, which I was going to bring out here. Um, but I'm not going to do it now because I just don't want to leave you here. And I'm going to give away this giveaway shortly. But Ebony and Ivy by Craig Stephen Wilder accounts for all the Ivy League schools and does a really deep dive on the Ivy League schools that had enslavement on their campuses, had black enslaved people, servants on their campus. There was a new report came out in the Boston Globe last week, said that Harvard may have enslaved, people in Harvard may have enslaved, white academia may have enslaved, or people who owned Harvard, white people who owned Harvard may have enslaved more than 1,600 black people on the campus. Quite frankly, I think it's a lot more than that. And Harvard in the year 2022 did a report, a very comprehensive report on the enslavement on its campuses and on the black people they experimented on or on the black people that they had as servants on the campus while white people were studying there. Servants, potted plants, acted, literally, and all kinds of other horrific things that were being done on and off campus at Harvard. And people walk around here with Harvard on their shirt. Man, if you knew what Harvard did to black people, we walk around with shirts with things on them, and we have no idea what in the fuck they mean. No idea. Stanford, people walk. I'm not knocking you if you went to Stanford or Harvard, right? I'm just saying people wear these things and they don't know the history of who Leland Stanford was. They don't know the history of the Stanford family. They don't know the history of these folks at Harvard. They don't know the history of folks at Princeton. Don't get me started on Princeton. In today's episode of the Politicrat podcast that I'm going to release, I went off on a certain Princeton professor because anyway. I don't want to give away the episode, but please stay tuned when I post it. Oh baby, you're not going to believe what you hear from out of the mouth of this one guy. Oh, I've just given away the gender of the person. You aren't going to believe this, but I'm not going to say it now. Sorry to put the tease out there. But you have to listen to the Politicrat podcast for today, May the 17th. I'm going to post the episode in the next hour or so. Okay? Yeah, they never had to take accountability. The Confederacy, that's part of the problem. Yes, that's very true, Brittany. Remember, as you may know, in at least 7 or 8 states in this country, maybe 6 states in this country, white enslavers were being compensated for the loss of their enslaved black person. Every enslaved black person in a number of different states. I think it was 6 states, including Virginia, West Virginia, and or Virginia's a Commonwealth, but West Virginia as well, and a few other states. You had white enslavers who got compensated per enslaved black person, I should say, because I hate saying slave because that's the mindset of the oppressor that you're using to describe these things. Language is everything. So, Brittany, you're 100% right. And not only were white enslavers compensated for every black person they had enslaved post slavery, post enslavement, we as black folk, our ancestors never got a dime. We never got the 40 acres and a mule. We never got jack for 246 years of enslavement labor in this country. No compensation, no reparations, no nothing. And I know that there's some cities where there's movements to compensate certain people. Sorry about this. I'm just doing something here. I just need to respond to something that's just popped up. Uh, okay, so I'm sorry about that. I've had to just get in touch with something here. I'm sorry. Um, I agree with that, Omar writes Vicky. So yeah, people have to understand what we never have had any confronting of one of the two original sins in this country. Of course, one of them was the genocide of Native Americans and stealing of their land. The other one was, of course, the enslavement of black people in this country. Those are the two original sins. You know, it's not about capital. It's not capital. I hear people talk about, oh, the original sin is capitalism. Well, the enslavement of black people, right, is something that then allowed these violent ass racists and people of that sort to make capital out of us. You know, you've got to identify the strict things that happened, right? We need to express the actual treatment of people and name that and be very declarative about it. I am so urgent about that. We cannot not do that. Okay. So thank you all for joining. Um, I have a birthday on May the 26th. Gosh, how did I get to be 78 years old? Vicky, fantastic. That's fantastic. Now, you may not look at it that way. Our country demonizes people who get older, demonizes an ageist society like the United States of America. And of course, Western culture is very ageist. And in the United Kingdom, in my place where I was born and raised and grew up, very ageist. You know, we have such contempt in Western cultures and societies for people who get older. We discard them. Many of us do. And the culture does. It's horrible. It's a really horrible thing. So, congratulations, Vicky. Happy birthday in advance. And keep on keeping on, Vicky. It's great to see you. That's something to be honored. Turning 78 years old, that's something to be honored, man. That's not something to be like poo pooing people for. You know, a lot of people would be lucky if they got to 78. Shoot. You know, there's black men that don't get to 70. I know Vicky is a white woman, but there are black men that don't get to 78. There are some black women who don't get to 78. There are some white people who don't get to 78. There's all kinds of people who don't get to 78. And to me, 78 is a young age. I honestly think that. I'm not 78 myself, but I don't think that 78 is old. But maybe when I get to 78, I might have a different view of that. So I'm not trying to demean or perform an act of erasure on Vicky or anyone else. That's a fantastic age to get to, you know? And we should be celebrating people who turn 78, 80, 85. Why not? Why do we pretend that they're no longer serviceable? I just, or no longer, you know, key to society. And I think this reflects in what we think about term limits, because just because you're 85, that doesn't mean that you stop automatically being an effective leader. Some people might say, oh, we want a different person in there. And I am for term limits for the Supreme Court, by the way. But the reason why I may not be so much so for Congress is because you do have some people in Congress who are still very effective. James Clyburn, who now, the white power structure in South Carolina, is trying to eliminate his seat. He's still effective at 85 or 86 years old or whatever he is. He is. He's still of sound mind. He's still very sharp. So is Chuck Grassley. I don't like Chuck Grassley's politics, right? But he's in his 90s right now. He's still blooming sharp. Bernie Sanders in his late 80s now. He's sharp as a razor. I'm not a big fan of Bernie. I used to be. Excuse me. There's things that Bernie's been very quiet on, relatively speaking. On voting rights, I don't really hear him saying too much. Did a big anti-oligarchy tour a year or two ago. But dude, where are you now on voting rights? I think I saw one thing on one of these platforms where he mentioned it briefly. But, this is where people like Bernie fall short for me. But I don't want to really make this all about Bernie. I know I started it. But this is where people like Bernie fall short for me. May birthdays. Let me tell you something, folks. May, this is great. This is great stuff. And thank you, Jason. Omar, you're the real deal, brother. Everyone, good luck. Take care of yourself, Jason. Keep fighting. I'm really sorry. Keep fighting, okay? And people are sending love to Jason. Thank you, and keep doing that. That will keep him going, keep him fighting. Believe me, Jason, we're in your corner, man. Keep going, brother. You've got people out here who care, and it's evidenced in the chat. So keep sending that love to Jason. Jason, take care of yourself, man. Just keep going. All right, and people, we care about you. You know. Next weekend is Memorial Day weekend, right? Stacey from California. Oh my gosh. Well, I'll have to give this thing away next weekend then. Oh, or maybe before. I might have to give away this Prince thing, the album later. I mean earlier, because oh my gosh, I did not know that, Stacey. Wow, I got to really get serious about giving away. There will be more giveaways. There'll be more guests. For those who might be wondering, well, we haven't really seen too many black guests from you. I've been putting out feelers. I had one black guest in February, and I've been putting out requests for black folk to come on with me for a number of months now, a number of weeks. I've not heard anything yet, so please bear with me. We're going to get black people on here talking. I'm going to be trying to get myself involved with being on other people's Substacks as well, because I think that's important to build a community of black people here. We cannot be in our silos. We can't afford that. I'm a big believer in trying to connect with people and reach out to people. And look, eventually I'll have some folk on here, some black people on here. Okay, we'll have some more of them. I've had one in February and I'll continue to have more black people on here, right? Because it's very important to support black voices and to promote that black voices. Yeah, Joy Reid did go to Harvard. That's correct, Annabelle. And I think she may have talked about Harvard with enslavement. But a lot of people walk around with Harvard on their chest and they wear it with a badge of pride, but they don't know any history about Harvard. They don't. And then they got rid of the first black woman to be the dean of the school. Hello, remember? That sister was forced out. Come on, folks. Let's get real. The first black woman, or maybe the first black person, period, who was dean of the school. Either Harvard Law School or Harvard University. Remember when she testified, and then these white racists jumped all over her, and then said, "Oh, well, you weren't specific enough." And maybe there were things she wasn't properly prepared for with that hearing. Remember that hearing in Congress a couple of years ago? And maybe Harvard should have done a better job with that. But still, now she's out. She was forced out. I am cringing listening to you about Omar, about the slave compensation. We lost you, right, Vicky. Yeah, Vicky, I'm sorry about that. Um, there's something I had to get to here, and so I had to, excuse me, respond to it in the moment. Great photo, Omar. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I believe, Terry Ann, you're referring to um, what I'm wearing, or maybe you're referring to my avatar on Substack. I don't know. The narcissistic part of me mentioned that last part, but I'm sure you're talking about this wonderful, wonderful sister here, and I hope that you know who she is or can name her at least. I talked about her a number of times earlier on, before you came in, Terry Ann. But thank you. And this shirt can be purchased from the Global Majority. Type in the Global Majority. They're a black-owned business. Karen Hunter, who is on a Sirius XM channel 126, The Urban View. She's a great sister. Go to just type in the Global Majority, black-owned business, and I think, and then you'll get you get to buy a shirt like this, and you'll get to see their whole business line, their apparel line. It's great. Yeah, exactly, Connie. Can't forget that either. On top of everything I said earlier, Connie Moody, and hello again, Connie. Thank you once again for your contributions and for being a great supporter of my Substack. I really appreciate what you do, and thank you very much for doing it and for being a paid subscriber. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Connie writes, and Trump is looking for reparations for the thugs of January 6th. Yeah. So think about that, folks. What Connie just said. Donald Trump is now looking for reparations, compensation for people who violently attacked the Capitol and who caused the suicides of at least six police officers, at least a few police officers, and also brought about the death of one of their own supporters, and did all this damage to people's lives, all this PTSD. And this guy who stood there and watched it happen while his Republican colleagues were begging him to stop, family members were begging him to stop. Now he wants them to get funded. He wants them to get 1.2 or 1.8 or 1.7 billion dollars. See? While he fires over 600,000 black women. Think about that. Think about that. This is the white power, dominance, and ubiquity, and flat out thuggery, criminality, and racism that you're seeing right before your eyes. Vicky writes, I'm thrilled to be 78 years old. I'm so happy to hear that, Vicky. That's a beautiful thing, man. And I think that people who get older, and I say this specifically, I think women who get older are much more attractive. I totally believe that. And this culture does not. This culture writes off women of any racial background at 30 years old. They're done. That's what the culture says. The patriarchy culture, right? The white patriarchy culture specifically says if you're 30, you're past it. You're done. That's such a really ridiculously stupid and ageist and sexist way to look at the world. This blinkered, narrow way to look at the world. Disposable. The culture and the society disposes of people. And it's just horrible. It's a horrible thing. Media plays a role in that too. Magazines play a role in that too. I love that. I I love that. Happy birthday. True wear something. And I guess what is that emoji there? Gail, you have to write what that is. I mean, I think I have an idea. What is that emoji there? Gail, can you explain that? Happy birthday, Vicky. That's fantastic. Everybody's wishing you happy birthday. We're all valuable. Exactly, Terry Ann. Come on, we're all valuable. I'm thrilled to be my age. Absolutely. Man, oh man. Come on. People don't realize as you get older, you're wiser. You know, of course, you go through challenges with things, as we all know you do once you get to a certain age and you keep moving. But you become more enlightened, more beautiful, more experienced, more um, worldly, more. You just bring so much to the table. You bring more to the table now than you probably did when you were 30. I know that's true. And I don't even know you personally, Vicky. Come on. And we need to celebrate people who are 70 or 75 or 80 or 85 or beyond. And it's a real shame. There are cultures such as on the African continent who that value this forever, value the wisdom of elders. The Asian cultures do as well. Several Asian cultures do the same thing, value the wisdom of elders, you know? And how in African communities, different cultures and countries and on the African continent, how people would gravitate to the elder and give them the highest position of power. Same thing in Native American cultures too, that would look at the wise elder. But here in the European cultures, no. White European cultures, no. That's not what it is. Yeah, yeah. No, there are people who need to go. I agree. Mitch McConnell's one of them. Yeah, he is not. He is a guy that has not. Listen, there's a lot of evil he's done. But I agree with Tanya of the 92%. And I said this earlier, I think before Tanya walked in. 78 is not old. Tanya, I agree. If you were here on this live, you're clearly sharp and engaged. Thank you, Tanya. Yeah, I agree with you, Tanya. Bernie is unfortunately a racist. You know what, Lefty Professor? I would agree with you. There's a lot of truth to that. And I don't care if there are people in here who don't like the fact that Lefty and I agree on that, and that we said that, and that Lefty said that. But I agree with you, Lefty. I think he is. And you can be progressive and be racist, and you can be white and progressive, and you can still be racist as well. Yeah, I've heard a lot of so-called white progressives in person, forget about on Substack, in person say things to me, to my face, that are racist as ass. Thank you, Lefty Professor, for that. Susan Sampson, who is a white woman, says, nope, not a Bernie fan either. Old white mediocre man. Just my opinion. I agree. I think Bernie's been way too lionized. I admit, as I said earlier, that I supported him about 10 years ago. But I stopped swiftly. I didn't get to meet him. I went to one of his rallies. But I stopped swiftly after a little while when I saw what the bullshit was of him. And I'm like, I was out. Now listen, he is still doing what he's doing and he is raising awareness, but he always raises awareness on the issue of class and economics, but he never talks about race and pretends that race and racism and white racism isn't part of all of this. And he's very quiet on shit like that. And people say it's a blind spot. No, it's not a blind spot. I agree, Lefty Professor, he's a racist. Period. And you don't have to say N to be a racist in this place. You don't have to wear a Klan hood to be a racist in this place. It's the things very often that you do not say that reveal who you are. It's very often the things that you do not do that reveal who you are. And that extends to people being racist as well. It's the things that you often don't do that show you to be the racist that you are. We have this very, very stereotyped view of what a racist person is. That's why the film Do the Right Thing is a really damn good film and that you really should watch it. If you've never ever watched Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, now would be the time to do so. I'm so thrilled that Vicky is celebrating her age. This is so good, man. You know? It's a beautiful thing, particularly when a woman does that. No matter who you are, black woman, white woman, Asian woman, Latina, Native American, be proud of that, man. And we need to be totally saluting people who get to 78 or 88 or 98. And instead of looking at them as some relic that doesn't have life. Are you kidding me? I know people who are of a certain age who have much more life and vitality than a lot of people who are in their 30s or 40s or 50s. We just do not, we make people who are older invisible. The culture does, not you and I, but the culture does, the society does. A special place in hell exists for Mitch McConnell, writes Annabelle. Yeah, I agree. I have a book on Mitch McConnell here. Um, can't remember the name of it. Gosh. Um, but yeah, Mitch McConnell has done a lot to damage things, hasn't he? He and Ronald Reagan are two of the biggest defenders for where we are right now. Mitch McConnell and Ronald Reagan. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can go and do some research, folks. Time flies when you are fighting fascism. I love that, Jeannie. Oh, little Jeannie. I don't know. Again, I don't know whether you're little or not. It doesn't. That's not, I'm just singing that song. Actually, that song was from 1980. I incorrectly said it was 1977. I thought I heard it in the 70s, but it's actually a song from 1980. I will, you know what, Vicky, I'm going to try. She follows me. Omar, ask April from the Contrarians to come on your show, writes Vicky. I will try. Vicky, thank you for the request. I know some of you have made requests to have people on like Joy Reid, and I'm going to try to do that with April. She follows me on here, and I do need to reach out to her. I think I tried to reach out to her several months ago, um, but I would like to speak with her. She has a new book out, by the way, and I would love to promote her book. I forget the title of the book. She's got it on her Substack. Please subscribe to April. Um, but yeah, um, I'm going to endeavor to do that. Honestly, I will really try, Vicky. Thank you. And I've reached out to a number of Black people. There are more Black people that I'm going to reach out to here so that I can have them on my live and be on theirs. Because we need to do this. We can't be operating, as I said earlier, we cannot operate in silos. Thanks for sharing the New York Times article notice. Shared a gift link on my Substack. Thank you, Dr. Mary. Really, really good. We can all do this, right? And this isn't just about me, this is about all of us. So people are sharing the article. And if I didn't bother to do this, I mean, I probably would have shared it anyway, but to paid subscribers, and maybe I might have even opened up for everybody to read because I think it's important that we all get to see it. But this article is a really important one, and people need to read it. It's long, but hey, if you're reading, you don't care about how long it is, generally speaking, I would imagine. Thank you, folks. Omar, I am a mess, writes Vicky, but a mess I like more now than when younger. I love that comment, Vicky. Thank you. You know, there's a song that I forget what who did it. It was Tom Petty, Bob Dylan, and maybe two others called the Papers or the Morning Papers or the Papers or something like that. And it's the chorus goes, "I was older. I wish I knew I was older, younger then than I am now, or something. I forget. You know the song I'm talking about. Bob Dylan and Tom Petty and whoever else. I was so much older then I can't even remember the lyrics, but you know which one I'm talking about. Yes, Connie, very important point. It's because women come into their power as they get older. That is so true. Connie Moody, thanks for writing that. That's really very true. Also, and I'm a man, but I know that this is true, right? And the culture is afraid of that. The white patriarchy and a lot of men, regardless of their racial background, are afraid of that, which is really pathetic, right? That any man would be afraid of a woman who is advancing in her years and coming into her power and her consciousness and her womanhood and her glory. Why would you be afraid of that as a man? You literally have a mother who brought you into the world, or you literally have a grandmother. Why would you be afraid of that? Why would you be intimidated by that? Why would you fear that? That's beautiful, man. That's a really empowering thing. Is right on. Connie Moody, thank you, Connie. So true. So true. And, you know, men like to mock their territory and put their stamp, their authority, and their toxic masculinity on all this stuff. And then they get celebrated for being distinguished. Oh, you look very distinguished with the gray hair. And then when a woman has gray hair, silver hair, people go, "Oh my God, it's like, no, that's a great, beautiful, attractive thing. No matter who you are as a woman, black, white, Asian, that should be celebrated. And your personhood, more importantly than your hair, your personhood, your whole being should be celebrated and acknowledged. It is about an empowerment. I totally agree, Connie. Thank you, everybody. We are going through a lot of stuff. And yeah, you don't give two fucks when you get older. And if you're a woman getting older, you don't give two shits either. And you shouldn't. Some of us late bloomers, some of us are some of us are late bloomers, so aging makes us wiser. Terry Ann, yes. I was mentioning that earlier. Wise elders are so important. Thank you, Connie. I know you've got to run. Happy Sunday. You got to run. Take care. I'm going to give away this prize now. I tend to agree with you, Omar, about Bernie, writes Vicky. Thank you, Vicky. Yeah, Lefty Professor and I are in the same one on that. We both think he's a racist. I do think that about him. And he gets celebrated all the time as if he's some kind of freaking guru. And I'm sorry, just because you march with Dr. King, that doesn't mean that you're this person who shouldn't be scrutinized and looked at for your racism, your anti-black racism. Just because you were friends with Jesse Jackson, the great late great Reverend Jesse Jackson, brother Jesse, who passed away earlier this year, just because you were friends with him, that doesn't exempt you. See, no performative politics, man. We don't need the performative bullshit. And there's a fair number of white politicians who are all about performative politics, performative progressivism, and all this kind of crap. And then you look at their record and it's like, yo, these people are trifling, racist ass. Thank you, everybody. Not for Bernie either, writes Gail. I am not a Bernie fan. I never have been. But these are white. Vicky is a white woman. I think Gail is as well. And Vicky says, I am not a Bernie fan. I've never been a fan. And Susan Sampson also is. And is a white woman, I'm saying, and is not a fan of Bernie. There's a lot of people who are white who don't like Bernie Sanders. There's a lot of black folk, we don't like him either. Again, I'm not a big fan of his either. I used to be years ago, but then I saw what was going on. I'm like, yo, this is bullshit here. And I was out. I skedaddled out of there, man. Never talks about black folk, never talks about anti-blackness, never challenges white people about their internalized racism or their outward racism. He just talks about it obliquely and then talks about class and right. Vicky says it again. He doesn't talk about race. I've never heard him talk about voting rights. Exactly, Vicky, as I mentioned earlier. Um, this dude does not talk about any of this shit now. Go on his X account. He mentions it once. I looked at his X account because I know he's on X. He mentioned it once last week in a fucking sentence, like he mentioned, literally put the words voting rights in there. Didn't say anything else. Spent all this time on an anti-oligarchy tour with AOC, and good luck to AOC. But spent all this time on that and never once talked. Where's the tour now on voting rights? You can't fight back against the oligarchy and fight back against these billionaires who are toxic, the toxic billionaires, if you don't have voting rights. It's the very billionaires that you went on the anti oligarchy tour about who are instrumental in stripping away your rights. They're the ones, along with these racist ass white Republicans, because they're all in that boat, right? So how could you not be doing something anyway? You get the idea. We all are agreeing on that. Age is just a number. Shriveled up turtle man. Brittany writes, "Oh, I'm talking to you in response to this Substack Live." Yeah, I think the problem with me not reading these comments in time is that you've been talking about something that I obviously did not respond to because that's my fault and no one else's. And so when I read it now and I need to get to your comments more sooner, then I still have trouble thinking about what it was that you were talking about or responding to. But Vicky, thank you. Gosh, I need to really read your comment. I'm trying to read them in real time, and I still got to give away this Michael Jackson album. Reagan was awful, horrible too, writes Vicky. Trickled down my ass, writes Brittany. Yeah, trickled down voodoo economics that George H.W. Bush fought him on when he ran against him in 1980, then became his running mate. And then everything was okay with voodoo economics, trickle down economics. April is great. She is very busy. Yes, she is, Vicky. Mitch McConnell needs to resign. Yeah, he actually does need to go. He does not have the faculty power that he used to. Charles Grassley, as much as I can't stand him, he's still very sharp. He is 92 years old, I think he is. Clyburn, still very sharp. Even if you, I mean, he and nothing beats experience. Clyburn is very experienced. I may not agree with everything that Clyburn does. Who does agree? But the point is that the guy is functioning and he's very sharp. Anyway, Thank you so much, everyone. She does have a book, new book. Yes, Danielle Moody. Yep, another one. Also, Tiffany Cross, I'm trying to get in touch with as well. So we'll see about all of this. Now, let me give away Katie Fang. Yep, she's another one. I know the song, Omar. Yeah, you know the song, Vicky. Great. I was so much younger then. Da 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 da. You know that song. It's called the Something Papers, or Pages, the Morning Pages or something by Tom. It's oh my God, senior moment incoming. Tom Petty, Bob Dylan, and a few other people. At least you know what I'm talking about, Vicky. I'm not completely off my rocker here. Um, God, so many great comments. Yeah, yeah, we stopped doing what we're told. Yeah, exactly, Gail. That's isn't that true? Don't you feel liberated, Gail, when you get to that certain age? And if you've been so used to having a man commandeering your life and telling you should do this, do that, do the other, um, and then you just break out of that shit and go, fuck you, fuck this. I'm doing what I do, or you quit that man in that case. And it doesn't have to be tied to a man, but I'm just saying, right, that um, I find that that's really true. That people I know, women of a certain age I know as well, particularly who say this, is that they feel much more liberated because they don't have some, and I'm not saying true of every single man on the planet, although I'm not the best judge of that, but they tend to say that their lives are much more fulfilling because not just because they are getting older and because there's all these great discoveries and connections that they're making within and without, but also in part because of men out there, the toxic men out there, the many men out there who have tried to fix that woman into a certain parameter. Anyway, thank you all. Oh my gosh, great comments. I tell my daughter to stop coloring her hair, writes Vicky. It is so much about empowerment. Yep, Vicky, I agree with what Connie, who left the chat a few moments ago, said. It is about empowerment. I agree with that. And I think a lot of men are intimidated by that because there's a lot of very insecure men out here and very toxic men out here. The back pages. There we go. Genie. Oh, yes. The back pages. That's what it was called. Oh, my God. I said the morning papers, then I said the morning pages. It's the back pages. Thank you. I was so much older then. I'm younger than that now. Absolutely, Jeannie. All right, Jeannie. Thank you, Jeannie. Love it. Oh yeah, the white. Read about the crone. Yeah, yeah, that whole thing about the crone. Yeah, there's a movie that came out, Vicky, in 2024 called The Substance, which I will never watch. Demi Moore starred in that movie. And that movie, which is directed by a woman, did a satirical take on the crone and things like that. And very violent movie. If you like graphic horror, even though I didn't watch the film, I just know of this from reading the reviews of it. It's an extremely graphic movie to sit through, from what I've learned. Let me put it that way. It's called The Substance. Demi Moore was nominated for that, for an Oscar a year or so ago. Yeah, we can't trust anyone. It's disheartening, writes Brittany. Yeah. See, if you're a woman, whether you're a black woman, a white woman, Latina, Asian woman, Native American, whomever, if you're female, yeah, it's a really, and I'm not in your shoes, so I'm not presuming to know all of this. Um, it's a really frightening place to be. It's a really frightening place to be. You have to figure out a way to, because of this violent male culture and this patriarchy and violent men and toxically violent men and their idea of masculinity, which is not masculinity at all. It's like boys who haven't grown up and but who have violence in their hearts and souls because the society reinforces that. You as a woman watching this, no matter whether you're a black woman, white woman, you have to start calculating all these things before they even actually happen. You've got to figure out, shall I bring mace with me? If I'm going out to meet someone who is a male on a date, do I have to bring mace? Should I call two of my girlfriends to follow up with me? And if they don't hear from me at a certain time of night, I'm in trouble. Do I have to, like, all these things that a woman has to, any woman of any racial background has to go through? Like, if I reject this guy, how do I do it? Do I do it kindly? Do I joke with him? Do I kind of go on the date with him and then just not talk to him again? Or do I kind of let him down gently? Or do I just tell him? Because if I don't, if I let him down gently, he may think that I still want to go out with, like, all, like, just in the realm of just dating alone. I'm not even talking about all the other things that the average woman who is a straight woman, or even who may not be a straight woman, right? I'm not judging straight or gay. I'm just saying that in interactions with men, there are all these things that women have to go. In fact, forget the dating part. What about at your workplace, where you have to go and go say, like, if I put this idea out there, am I going to get credit as a woman for that idea? Especially if I'm a black woman out there. If I put an idea out there, is some white boy going to steal it from me and take credit for the idea that I actually raised, that I put out there? Is my idea going to be invisible? And white women go through this kind of thing as well, and Latinas, put out this idea at your workplace, and then you don't get credit for it, but some white guy gets credit for it. I mean, so there are all these things and so much more that I couldn't possibly know, right? As a man, as a straight man, I couldn't possibly know all of these things, but I'm certainly aware and aware to these things. Um, it's just and you know, it's just pretty wild stuff. I am a white Jewish woman, writes Vicky, and she says I was never a Bernie fan. And the reason why I think Vicky pointed out that she's a white Jewish woman is because Bernie is a white Jewish man. And so, you know, people have to remember, folks, that just because someone is a white person or a white Jewish person doesn't mean that they automatically follow and support someone who's white and Jewish. I mean, I think we have to really look at stuff like this. Just because someone's black, it doesn't mean that they're automatically supported by black people. There was a number of black people who did not like Barack Obama. A lot of people who, in fact, I'm one of them, who was very critical of him, especially in his second term. So we have to really look at this, and that's an important point. Vicky points out that she's a white Jewish woman, never a fan of Bernie, who's a white Jewish man. And I think there's this stereotype thinking that just because you are white and Jewish, or just because you're black, or just because you're something, that you're automatically going to support and gravitate to someone who's black or someone who's white and Jewish. That is not always the case. There are lots of people in New York City, for example, because New York City has a fairly high white Jewish population. I think there are more white Jewish people in New York City than anywhere else outside of Israel, I think, except for Israel. And so there were lots of white Jewish people who supported Mamdani and were critical of Bibi Netanyahu. And the New York Times reported that like that was some big revelation. Shit, go to the Upper West Side of New York City, go to the Upper West Side of Manhattan. There's lots of people there who are white and Jewish who can't stand Bibi Netanyahu. And not just in New York City and Upper West Side, anywhere in America. There's a lot of people of any, but we get conditioned to have this kind of very narrow thinking. Bernie is a Jew-hating Jew, writes a white Jewish woman named Vicky. Those are her words. And I would add, Vicky, certainly I would, who I'd add to that? Woody Allen. I'd definitely add his name to that too. And Vicky, since you're a white Jewish woman, you would probably know, well, not probably, you would know more about that. You'd have a better judgment on that than I would as a black man, as a straight black man. Um, but I think Woody Allen hates Jewish people. I think Stephen Miller definitely hates Jewish people, white Jewish people. He's a white Jewish person, Stephen Miller. And I think he hates white Jewish people. I think he hates Jewish people of any racial background. Because you have black people who are Jewish, you have Latinos who are Jewish, you have, I mean, so Little Richard was Jewish, I think, at one point. So, yeah, I think Woody Allen, he's a despicable piece of garbage, Woody Allen. Um, yeah, that's so true. Brittany writes, Bernie would give away his fucking money if he was serious. Yeah, 100%. White male privilege, Gail writes. Yeah. Yeah, that's so, so true. That's so Bernie, I'm glad he is anti Netanyahu. Yeah, I know he is. He is, Len. That's very true about him. But I totally agree with what Brittany said as well about, yeah, if he really want, he would give away some of his wealth. I mean, Tom Steyer actually has done that. I mean, back to California for a minute. Tom Steyer actually has given away a lot of his wealth to really good things that impact people's lives. Yeah. There are much poor politicians giving away their funds, and we need to pivot. That would be Brittany's comment. Thank you, Brittany. Right. Vicky is so right. Thank you, Vicky, for this. In response, I think, to Len, Vicky writes, but Bernie is anti Jewish, not just anti Netanyahu. That is very true. That's the broader picture, the broader lens. Vicky, absolutely. Vicky broadens the lens. Yes, it's good that he's anti Netanyahu, but he's also anti Jewish as a whole, which is I think that's very true. Again, I'm not an expert here as a black man who is actually a Christian. I'm not an expert, but I'm telling you, I think he is. I agree with you, Vicky, and I definitely think that that Woody Allen is. I think Stephen Miller definitely is. These are these are real variables here. Omar, I am just having a running conversation with you in my house. Is that a good thing or a bad thing, Vicky? It's great fun, Vicky. Thank you. Um, you know, and I know there's some disagreements in the chat between people on some of this. Healthy debate and discussion and disagreement is always good, of course, as long as, of course, people don't get to be mean and nasty about it. Um, Ida B. Wells is making angry faces on Omar's shirt. Thank you, Annabelle. Um, Yeah, that is a Dylan song. The back pages, yeah, Dylan and Tom Petty, and I always forget the other two guys who are on that too. Um, I love that song, by the way. I've been listening to that song for a long time. Yeah, he is a racist, Millie. 100%. Grassley is also racist with that sharp mind of his. Yeah, he's a sharp minded racist. Yeah. Millie, that's so true about Chuck Grassley. Oh, man. I do not like that guy at all. But he's 92 and he is sharp, he is pretty bloody sharp. But yes, he is a freaking racist piece of garbage. If only that anyway, I don't even want to I could say something, but I'd probably get in trouble. So I don't want to get in trouble here. These are great people that Terry Ann writes about Danielle Moody, Tiffany Cross, and Joy Reader. Yes, they are. They're all brilliant. They're all brilliant. Um, no man in my house now. it, it's a running conversation with me in your house. I'm the only man in your house, Vicky. Is that what you're saying? That's great. That's great. Thank you, Vicky. Liberated and also ignored. Is that what you wrote, Gail? And it's sad, but Gail, that's so sad, though. I know that is a reality for us, for many women who hit a certain age, because of the sexism, because of the ageism, because of this disposable society that discards women as soon as they hit 30. And I think, and I've never agreed with that. I've always been much more open to uh, women uh, who are not 30, who are much beyond 30, because I just think that there's so much more to learn and grow and have great conversations with people like that. And could you imagine I mean, we've all been 30 once, and someone in here might be 30 now, but come on, mate. You don't learn anything from I mean, you might learn some things from people who are 30. Of course, there are things you learn from anyone at any age, but oh, come on, man. I mean, yeah, it's a sad thing, Gail, that you would be ignored at a certain age. It's a reality, though. It's a biting reality. And then you see the New York Times again. I've mentioned the New York Times many times today. You see the New York Times talking about, oh, they're younger men who want to date older women. And then there's old women who look at those guys and go, come on, mate. But you might find a 40 something year old guy or someone in their 50s who offers something that maybe a 75-year-old man doesn't. But for the most part, there's a lot of men I think that who are very emotionally immature at any age, right? I think there's a lot of men. I know I'm generalizing, but there's a lot of men who are not emotionally mature at all, and they never become that. And that's what a lot of women of any racial background put up with, or don't, right? They decide to form relationships with other women, or they decide to, seek out self love and appreciation for who they are as they get older, and they say, "Fuck these men at 78. Why the fuck would I want to go out with an 83-year-old immature boy who's still in midlife crisis mode as if he's 52 or 47?" And still driving a Ferrari around and still trying to do this and that. Not for me. I'm not for that. That's a little boys club still. Why do I want to go out with and have a relationship with an 82-year-old man who may be really a 22-year-old in his mentality? I'm just, that's a wide generalization. But there are lots of women who put up with that or don't. And so they seek, as I said, relationships elsewhere. And then they live their real lives that they didn't get to live for 40 years. I know I'm sounding awfully grim, but that's the reality I would imagine from many women. Some of you may be in here. I love living alone now. See? Look at the freedom that Vicky talks about there. It's freedom. It's you being in charge, not some man saying that you have to do this and do that, or pressuring you to do so, or worse, right? I would like to bring Waj on. I would, Gloria. And I would like, he follows me too. I'd like to reach out to him. I'm going to try. I've invited him on before for the podcast, but for the sake of actually doing this live, yeah, I'd like to. I don't know. He does a million lives a day, so I don't know if we'd have every time to do one, but I'd like to. Yeah, I think that we should. No one tells me what to do, writes Vicky. Amen. It's like getting back to who you are. Yes, Gail. Especially if you know there are lots of people who have had kids and they're empty nesters, so to speak. And there are women that I've heard of and know who feel a real freedom in getting back to who they were prior to doing what they did as a parent, right? And or even if you don't have kids, right? The same thing. You may have been with someone in your life. You may have been a career-oriented person, and you now are retired, and then you have this freedom. It doesn't have to be tied to a man or around a man. Um, I'm much happier in my life, writes Brittany. See, I mean, these are this is the, and the thing is, it's a really, I think maybe there's some, do you find there to be some sadness that you missed out perhaps on a lot of time in your life because of, anyway, I mean, that could be a separate live. Um, Yeah, I know. Yeah, Vicky says I'm not such a Watch fan, but he would be a good person to Omar to have on the show. I would love to talk to him, um, uh, Vicky. And I don't agree with Watch on everything either. I don't. And I don't. I think it would be really boring if we agreed with everything. If you agreed with me on everything, it would be boring. I think if I agreed with you on everything, it would be boring. If Waj agreed with me on everything, it'd be boring. And if I agreed with him on everything, it'd be boring. You know. But I would like to speak because yeah, there's things he says that I don't agree with, and there's things he says that I do agree with, and I'm sure the same thing vice versa. I don't color my hair. I'm glad you don't, Vicky. That's great. Never did. Good. We need to really have that with women just being who they are, man. Without this kind of stuff that the media and Madison Avenue tells you and Vogue tells you. No, it's great that you don't color your hair. You. I bet you look better with your hair as it is than if you colored it. Thank you, folks. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't do horror. I am a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. Vicky writes, Vicky, I am so sorry for what you experienced. And I support you 1000%. And you are here. And you are here, Vicky. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for being who you are. And thank you for joining me here. Women choose the teddy bear. Yeah. That's true of some women. Some women choose a pet, some women choose a teddy bear, some women choose another woman. Some, and again, I'm not making judgments. I'm just saying what the realms are. Some women choose solitude and get great joy out of that. How many of us really know ourselves? How many of us really do? How many of us really spend time with ourselves? This culture says that you shouldn't ever do that, especially if you're a woman. It doesn't matter if one is straight or gay. Absolutely, it doesn't. I was making an illustrative point earlier, Vicky. Yeah, men can be dangerous. I was in a couple of scary dating situations, right, Gail? Yeah, yeah. I can completely understand that that happens. That happens every day to any woman on this planet. It's a horrible thing. It's a horrible thing. My best several years, and Gail, I'm sorry that you were in those situations. And men do that. There are men on this planet who put you or any other woman watching this in a very dangerous situation. And then there are all these things that run through your head. It's a very scary place to be. And men put you there. And this society does. And some women endorse that kind of stuff, which is really frightening. What were you doing with him at 3 o'clock in the morning? How many times did Desiree Washington, the black woman who Mike Tyson was found guilty of raping, how many times were some women, some of them were black women, a small number, were saying, "What were you doing up there with him at 3 a.m.? You should have known that he was a monster. You should have known that if you go to a man's hotel room at 3 a.m. in Indiana, you should know what you're going to be going up there for." And there's so many women and some white women who were saying that too at the time. There's so many women who think like this. Maybe less so now, but back then in the 80s and the 90s and back in the 70s, wow, and before the 70s, oh boy, frightening stuff. I feel Susan Sampson. I feel very lucky that my direct approach when I was younger didn't get me into trouble. See, Susan, you were definitely very fortunate, but that's really great that you did what you had to do to be direct. It is being aware to all these things that is vital. Yes, Vicky, 100%. Bernie denies his Jewishness. Yeah, I think he does too. I think he plays that down a lot, Vicky. We can be critical. It's important to be critical. And I think when you get older, it's important to be critical. And I don't think people should stop you from doing that or anyone from doing that. And there's an on-running conversation between, I think, Len and Vicky, I think, and others in the chat on things. Um, yeah, that's correct, Omar. New York City, writes Vicky, it has a large Jewish population other than Tel Aviv. Yep, very true. Yes, he was. Sammy Davis Jr. was Jewish. That is absolutely right. Um, There we go. All Woody Allen's movies talk about being Jewish. Yeah, that is true about. Yeah, I know. I said I think he hates He hates being white and Jewish. But that is true about Woody Allen. I think sometimes, again, and I'm not Jewish, so maybe I'm not a Jewish person. I'm a Christian. Um, I think sometimes, and maybe if you're a Jewish person in this chat watching this, you have a better angle on this. I think sometimes though his talk, his gestalt, if you will, this talk about being Jewish in his movies, I think sometimes comes off as anti-Jewish to me as a black man who's a Christian. Again, I'm not Jewish, so I'm not in the position to critique this in the same way you as a Jewish person watching would. But I think some of that is very anti-Jewish, what he says, even as he's talking about Jewish people. You can correct me or you can give me your view. The battery is running really low here and I still haven't given away this thing, this great gift. Vicky says it's a good thing I am talking out loud to you. Oh, you're literally talking out loud. That's Vicky, fantastic. We can all disagree, and I don't see meanness here. Thank you for the great conversation. For this great conversation, right, Susan? Got to run. Have a great rest of the day, you all. Thank you, Susan Sampson, fellow Spoutable resident. Great to see you here. Thank you. Wilburys, I think the Traveling Wilburys may have done the song, Brittany, but I thought it pre existed them. Traveling Wilburys, yeah, Roy Orbison was in that group too. I think the Traveling Wilburys did that song, but I also thought the song was older than them. Speaking of a lyric in the song, excuse me. spitting out here. I think it is the Traveling Wilburys, Brittany. Thank you for mentioning the back pages. But I thought the song was older than that. But anyway, we'll see. Someone will check that for me. Vicky says, LOL, this is so great. I want to have this running conversation right now. You are the only man in my house. Vicky, all right. Thank you for inviting me, Vicky. I appreciate it. Yeah, it is sad when my most important relationship is with myself, Gail. I hear you. I'm not going to countermand what you're saying. All I will say that might slightly countermand what I just read out from you is that to have a relationship with yourself is really important. It's a profound thing. It is not a bad thing, and it's not a sad thing in my eyes. So maybe I did kind of countermand your view. I respect your view. I'm not trying to argue at all with what you're saying. I'm just saying I think our culture devalues having introspection. It devalues having a relationship with yourself, men and women, people in general. This culture that this society devalues that, and they think this society thinks, oh, you're weird if you have a relationship with yourself, if you like to be by yourself, or if you like to have to go out to concerts alone or to go to dinner alone. And especially if you're a woman, you're stigmatized for doing that. But I hear what you're saying, Gail. I think I take the larger context of what you said. It is a strength. Brittany, right on cue. It is a strength, not a weakness. Thank you, Brittany, for saying that to Gail. It is a strength. That's the one thing I didn't say just there. It's a positive, it's a strength. It's not a weakness. Did I see the show Age of Attraction? No, I didn't. I saw a show on HBO Max that dealt with dating. Actually, I did. Actually, I did see someone on Netflix, Vicky, called The Later Daters, and it dealt with people in their 60s and above who were dating. I think they went from their 50s and above. The Later Daters. Quite interesting. I actually thought it was quite good. That was on Netflix. That was also a reality show, but The Age of Attraction I didn't see. I'll have to watch that, Vicky. But there's a show also on Netflix in addition to Age of Attraction called The Later Daters. It may still be on there. I thought that show was really good. I love trash TV, Vicky. It's not all their fault. Are you speaking about men, Gail? It's societal. It is societal. I agree with you. Oh my gosh, I've got to give away the prize. Dick and Derek. I still have a husband. Oh, that's good. Good, 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 good. Good for you. That's great. Oh man, it's now learning who I am, and I have been for years. There's a spiritual thing about that too. I was married for over 35 years. It's been 20 years now. Vicky, that's a tremendous thing though. What life is like post marriage. Um, there's a really interesting film, a good film from 1978 called An Unmarried Woman. And I remember seeing it back in 1982, a few years later, in yeah, it was either in the theater or on TV and I actually have the film here as well. An Unmarried Woman by directed I forget who directed it. Alan Pakula? I forget who directed it. But it was starring Jill Clayburgh, who is no longer with us. That film to me is quite interesting. And it might echo some of the things that both Vicky and Gail have said, and other women, Brittany, have also said. An Unmarried Woman. It's from Paul Mazursky. He's the guy who directed it. And it stars Jill Clayburgh in that role. I think it's quite a good movie. It is definitely okay for us to disagree. And I don't color my hair either. Good for you, Brittany. That's fantastic that you don't. Omar, it'd be great to see you on Joy Reid and Don Lemon shows. Yeah, Terry, you know what? I would love to be on Joy Reid and Don Lemon shows. Don Lemon actually subscribes to me, which I really, really appreciate. And he did it live on the air a few weeks ago. And I would love to have a moment with Don on his Substack or on mine. I would love that. I don't, but Don's very busy, but I'd love to speak to Don and Joy as well, Joy Reid as well. Now, look, I talked to a couple of months ago about how someone on her team just completely stopped me from commenting on her Substack chats as a paid subscriber to them. But again, this is bigger than me, and I unsubscribed as a paid subscriber. But it's bigger than me, though. I mean, even though I can hold two different thoughts in my head at once, I can talk to you about the fact that yeah, I've been banned from commenting, and I look like I said anything problematic. What did I say that was wrong? I don't know. I don't really care at this point. There's water under the bridge. But I can hold two opposing thoughts at once. I can say that I didn't like that, and I can